Warrior Lore. Chapter 31-22. You're courting death. Master Ching Chen's whole body was filled with coldness, and a shuddering feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. It was as if this gaze had directly penetrated her monk robe. Almost without hesitation, Master Ching Chen hit the Buddha's seal that she had just formed on the space-splitting cauldron. A wisp of fire that was several times purer than before, but also several times smaller, rushed out like a red snake. Puff, the starfish's abdomen also sent out a wisp of cold water, which touched the fire. With a muffled sound, the fire was extinguished instantly. Master Ching Chen turned pale with fright. Her whole body was filled with Buddha's light, and she wanted to use other Buddhist magic. However, the starfish was too fast. Just as the Buddha's light was produced, the starfish's 5 tentacles had already covered Master Ching Chen's body. Although Master Ching Chen was sitting on the rainbow wand, the tentacles were like a big hand holding Master Ching Chen, and the Buddha's light quickly melted in the starfish's green light. The starfish grabbed Master Ching Chen and immediately flew back. It seemed that this fellow's target was Master Ching Chen. Su Zhuoyang was shocked. While urging his flying sword, he hurriedly looked at Xiao Hua, who had not moved just now, on the cloud crane. However, Su Zhuoyang's gaze was everywhere, and the cloud crane's back was empty. He did not see Xiao Hua's figure. Evil creature. Not far away from Su Zhuoyang, Xiao Hua had appeared in front of the starfish at some point. His voice sounded coldly. I didn't want to make things difficult for you, but you actually learned from other bandits who occupied a mountain and robbed others. You even learned to rape others. I really can't stand it. I'll give you one more chance. Quickly put the sorcerer down, and I'll spare your life on account of your difficult cultivation. Su Zhuoyang smiled bitterly, but he did not take it seriously in his heart. Xiao Hua's words were all inscriptions. Even if the starfish had cultivated into a spirit, how could it understand them? Sure enough, the starfish seemed to know how powerful Xiao Hua was. His whole body flashed again, almost like a shadow flashing, making everyone unable to see which one was the real starfish. Crack, crack, crack. Just when Su Zhuoyang's 1,000-eyed pupils couldn't distinguish clearly, Xiao Hua waved his hand, and several hundred bolts of lightning fell from the sky, covering an area of 3,000 feet. All the phantoms were destroyed by this heavenly lightning without exception. The true form of the starfish was revealed. Oh no! Unfortunately, when Su Zhuoyang saw the starfish clearly, the joy he had just felt completely disappeared, because in the middle of the purple lightning, the starfish's body also emitted green lightning, blocking Xiao Hua's lightning. This starfish also had the lightning attribute. Ha ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed. He glanced at the starfish's tentacles and at Master Ching Chen, whose Buddhist light was already very dim, and knew that he couldn't delay any longer. With a clap of his hand, the spirit execution sword gourd appeared, and he laughed loudly. Treasure, please show yourself, whoosh. With a loud sound, 2 green and red spirit execution sword gourd flew out. That faint gray color, which seemed to have a nose and eyes, emerged from the sword gourd. The refined spirit execution sword gourd was indeed powerful. As soon as the sword light appeared, the starfish immediately stopped moving in midair. Haste! Xiao Hua chanted an incantation. The sword light rushed into the starfish's lightning. With a muffled puff, a stream of aqua blue pus rushed out. The starfish immediately slid down from Master Ching Chen's almost completely disappeared Buddha's light like a tattered rag, falling onto the island. Xiao Hua released the spirit execution sword gourd and then killed the starfish. In just a few breaths' time, Su Zhuoyang and the others almost didn't see clearly what was going on with the spirit execution sword gourd. The starfish had already been killed, and they naturally couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. They looked at each other, and their eyes flashed with shock and joy. As for Chu Mu Huan, he was almost ecstatic. Thank you, Xiao Tengyu. Master Ching Chen seemed to be still in shock, and his face flashed with slight panic. He put his palms together and flew in front of Xiao Hua, bowing and thanking him. The previous benefactor had been replaced with Tanyu. You're welcome. Xiao Hua put away the sword gourd and waved his hand. You and I are on the same side. I'm still waiting for that matter after this. Yes, This poor nun understands. Master Ching Chun took a deep breath and said, just for Tan Yu's life-saving grace today, even if this poor nun has to use up her glib tongue, I will ask Zen Master to take action. Then this Xiao thanks you in advance, Xiao Hua said with a smile, and his gaze fell on his left hand again. He did not put away the bamboo slip in his left hand at all. His magic power is boundless. This was Master Ching Chen's evaluation of Xiao Hua at this time. At this moment, her heart was in a mess. These sea beasts were not ordinary. Most of them were lustful creatures. She was a bhikkhuni. If she were to fall into the hands of these sea beasts, death would be the best outcome. She did not dare to imagine anything else. At this time, she really regretted it. She really should not have gone deep into this unpredictable West Sea for some greed. Fortunately, Xiao Tan Yu is an expert. He is really my Buddhist sect's boundless protector. Suddenly, Master Ching Chun had some understanding. It seemed that Xiao Hua should have practiced the Buddhist sect's protector cultivation method. Although there was no Buddhist consciousness and no saraira, it made her feel close to him. However, looking at Xiao Hua's indifferent look, she also knew that Xiao Hua would not answer directly. Anyway, there was still a chance in the future. Master Ching Chan sighed, stepped on a light cloud, and landed on the back of the colorful Wan, who was also in a daze, to rest for a while. Thank you, Su Zhuoyang wanted to say again, but Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, don't mention it. Hurry up. We have wasted a lot of time again. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid we will be late. Yes, Su Zhuoyang nodded, but his eyes fell on the sea star corpse on the island, and he reminded, fellow immortal Xiao, this sea beast's monster core can be used to refine medicine and refine qi, and there are many things on the corpse. Can also be used to refine imperial weapons, magical weapons, and so on. Oh, is that so? Xiao Hua's eyes left the bamboo slips, glanced at the sea beast corpse, and said with a smile, then I'll have to trouble you, fellow immortal Su. I want the monster core. As for the rest, please make the decision and distribute it to everyone, okay? Haha, okay. Seeing that Xiao Hua was so generous, Su Zhuoyang was overjoyed. This sea star was so powerful, and it was of the thunder attribute. Its physical body must be precious. Compared with it, the monster core was not that obvious. In Su Zhuoyang's eyes, Xiao Hua gave up the precious body, but wanted the monster core. He was just looking for an excuse to save everyone's face. With such a shrewd overseas cultivator accompanying them to the West Sea lost treasure, how could Su Zhuoyang not be at ease? What Su Zhuoyang thought, Chu Muhuan, Master Ching Chun, and Leopard's spiritual master also understood. Some of their previous worries had long disappeared. Fellow immortals, Su Zhuoyang landed next to the sea star corpse, took out the monster core and gave it to Xiao Hua. When Xiao Hua casually took it and put it away, he said, after all, it will take time to divide the corpse. We'd better hurry. When we arrive at that place, I'll find some free time to distribute this thing. Okay? It's okay. We'll listen to Su Tanyue's instructions. Master Ching Chan nodded. This thing originally belonged to Xiao Tanyue. Now it's distributed to us. We can do it at any time. Okay. Seeing that the others also nodded, Su Zhuoyang put away the sea star corpse, urged the sword light, and flew straight across the island toward the northwest. Xiao Hua also got on the cloud crane, still looking down at the bamboo slips, as if nothing had happened. Alas! Seeing that Xiao Hua was so calm, Chu Muhuan sighed in his heart. He understood that he could no longer treat Xiao Hua as an ordinary overseas cultivator. Fellow immortal Chu, at this moment, Xiao Hua put away the bamboo slips and said with a smile, I have something to ask. Fellow immortal Xiao, please ask. Chu Muhuan's face immediately piled up with a smile and replied, fellow immortal Su just said that this monster core can be used to make medicine. What's going on? Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and took out the bowl-sized monster core, which emitted a water-blue brilliance, from the space. Seeing this monster core, Chu Muhuan was immediately frightened and hurriedly shouted, fellow immortal Xiao, it's not easy to take this thing out here. You'd better put it away quickly. If other sea beasts see it, thousands of sea beasts will come to seek revenge. Even if fellow immortal has 3 heads and 6 arms, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to escape." Seeing Chu Muhuan's reaction, Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly put it away. Then he looked at Chu Muhuan and quietly waited for his explanation. "Fellow immortal Xiao, you have Taoist cultivation. Presumably, you also know that Taoist cultivation steals the essence of heaven and earth for their own use. They blindly take from heaven and earth without asking for anything in return." Speaking up to here, Chu Muhuan seemed to be afraid that Xiaohua would be displeased and hurriedly explained, "Of course, as a cultivation path that is on par with our Confucian cultivation and Buddhist cultivation, although it has declined after our Confucian cultivation and Buddhist cultivation joined hands to exterminate it, its alchemy techniques are indeed somewhat unique. However, alchemy techniques also inherit the Taoist cultivation method. They also take a shortcut by seizing the essence of heaven and earth and refining it into medicinal pills. They use the medicinal effects of the pills to improve the cultivation of Taoist cultivators." Chu Muhuan thought for a moment and said, "But this unique alchemy technique also provides us Confucian cultivators with a new path to take as a reference. Although we Confucian cultivators don't advocate using medicinal pills and other things to increase the speed of cultivation, when one's cultivation is unable to advance even an inch, this medicinal pill can also allow us to walk out of a situation where we are at the end of our rope and have no way out. Of course, this is a chance to live, but the road is short. It's far from being as far as relying solely on tempering the righteous energy in the chest. But on the other hand, the road of cultivation is long and endless. We search from top to bottom, and if we can take one more step, it's one more step. Who doesn't want to take a few more steps? Therefore, we Confucian cultivators now also have some alchemy techniques, although they are not as exquisite as the Taoist alchemy techniques." Hearing this, Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He probed that, when was the Taoist exterminated by us Confucian cultivators and Buddhist cultivation? To what extent has it declined now? In fact, it might not be appropriate for Xiaohua to say these words here. After leaving the Western Ocean, he could inquire as much as he wanted. However, Xiaohua was very curious. The Dawn Rain continent claimed to have exterminated the Buddhist and Confucian cultivators, and the three continents claimed to have exterminated the Taoist cultivators. What was so strange about this? -11. Chapter 31:23. This, Chu Muhuan shook his head. Taoism was exterminated in the ancient times. It disappeared for a long time. We didn't know there was such a cultivation path. Later on, we didn't know when it started, but Taoism was revived, and we slowly knew the secret. However, this Taoist disciple didn't have much fame in the three continents, and I know very little about it. Oh, right. Doesn't fellow Taoist Xiao have Taoist cultivation? The previous one, was it a Taoist magic tool? And Xiaohua nodded slightly, but he was already absent-minded. Yes, on Xiaoyu continent, Xiaohua knew that Buddhism and Confucian cultivators had been exterminated by Taoism and no longer existed. Confucian cultivators might have some insignificant inheritances in the Dawn Rain continent, or perhaps in the millions of Ming mountains. As for the Buddhist sect, they could be found in the ruins of the Buddhist sect. Now, the only cold bamboo was killed by Xiaohua. Perhaps it would be difficult to find any Buddhist sect disciples in the Dawn Rain continent. However, on these three continents, things were actually the opposite. Everyone knew that Taoism had been exterminated by Buddhism and Confucian cultivators and no longer existed. Although there was some revival now, the situation was similar to Buddhism and Confucian cultivators on Xiaoyu continent. Maybe even stronger than that. At least, Xiaohua didn't become a rat on the street, and everyone didn't want to beat him. As an overseas cultivator, Xiaohua could still show his Taoist cultivation and not be killed by Confucian and Buddhist cultivators. But the question was, who was the one who killed who? These three continents and Xiaoyu continent, what was going on? Could it be that this was also an independent world like Demon Realm and Demon Realm? Did I come here by chance through the space vein? Could it be that whatever formation was made by heaven? I'm afraid so. Only a natural formation could have such power. No matter what nascent soul cultivator or spirit-severing cultivator entered, they wouldn't be able to return. Xiao Hua immediately understood. Moreover, the space vein of these two worlds is actually in the depths of Gue He Si and Shi He Si. It's far from what I imagined. Hee, that's right. Second senior brother didn't say where the space vein was. In the air, in the water, in the mountain rocks, maybe even in the flowers and plants. However, how did Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects move to this world? Everyone, this is such a big deal. Forget it. Thinking of this, Xiaohua felt a headache coming on. This is an ancient secret. What does it have to do with this Xiao? Right now, I have a home that I can't return to. It's better for me to think about how to raise my cultivation. Only by reaching the level of the 10,000 Demon Realms Empress can one discover the spatial vein and return to the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua had gone through painstaking cultivation. Although his strength had not reached the level where he could challenge the spirit-severing stage, he had been suppressing the desire to return to the Dawn Rain continent from the depths of the Kuai He Si in a few days and give the person who had plotted against him a head-on blow. At the very least, he had to avenge the two vengeful souls in Yellow Flower Ridge. He had to kill two nascent soul cultivators for everyone to see. But now that he was in a different realm, it would be extremely difficult for him to go back. He could only let go of this blood feud. Whether it was Yuanying or Avatar, their lifespans were extremely long. Enough for Xiao Hua to find a spatial vein in the future and go back to take revenge. Of course, if he was unable to find the way back, Xiao Hua would not be too disappointed in his heart. Everything that happened in the Dawn Rain continent basically had an effect. The two people who treated Xiao Hua the best had now died. Their souls had fallen into Xiao Hua's space. From now on, they would accompany Xiao Hua at all times, never to be separated. Although Xiao Hua would sometimes think of Fairy Hongxia, when he thought of Fairy Hongxia's appearance in those days and compared her to the dead Xue Xue, Xiao Hua's heart would involuntarily calm down. Time was the best elixir. If Fairy Hongxia's feelings for him were sincere enough, then these feelings might not fade because of time. Thinking of Fairy Hongxia, Xiao Hua could not help but smile bitterly again. Fairy Hongxia wanted to distance herself from him, leaving space and time for the two of them to calm down. And the heavens had also fulfilled her wish. It was just that this distance was beyond Xiao Hua and Fairy Hongxia's imagination. The distance between two realms, it was so far that Xiao Hua could not imagine it. As for the time, it was far beyond Xiao Hua's imagination. Xiao Hua, who already knew the truth of the matter, had such thoughts. As for Fairy Hongxia, who also knew of Xiao Hua's death, what did she think? The so-called time, the so-called space, those were the difference between life and death, the separation of yin and yang. This test could not be said to be not big, nor could it be said to be not far away. Who would know the result? Xiao Hua's mood was somewhat gloomy. He lowered his head as if he was thinking. Chu Mu Huan was somewhat baffled, but he did not dare to ask. Not only was Xiao Hua's speech mysterious, his methods were also powerful. He was definitely the eccentric overseas rogue cultivator in his impression. After a while, the sky brightened. Xiao Hua closed his eyes. His expression had already returned to normal. Clearly, he was comprehending the eye-clearing technique on the bamboo block. Xiao Hua was calm, but Su Zhuoyang's face was abnormally anxious. He had opened up a distance of several tens of feet between the four of them. Unknowingly, he had already rushed in front of them. When the red sun rushed into the sky, the blue sky was clear as if it had been washed. On the blue sea surface, countless gray-white sea birds spread their wings and fluttered. The five of them arrived at the left side of a coral reef. This coral reef was roughly several li in size. It was either exposed above the sea surface or hidden below the sea surface. The multicolored corals were like flowers blooming in spring. They dyed the several li of sea surface, making them extremely easy to recognize. What was special was that on the coral reef facing the east, there was a protrusion about half a zhang tall. This protrusion seemed to be in the shape of a human, with a head and a face. Right now, facing the rising sun, it was like a child watching the sun. Sigh, from far away, Su Zhuoyang released his divine sense. When he saw the empty coral reef, he couldn't help but sigh. He turned his head to look at the people still following behind him and felt a wave of disappointment. Indeed, he had met up with the three of them. encountered Xiaohua, and then encountered the sea beasts halfway. The time spent in between was indeed too long. According to that person's cautious nature, he definitely wouldn't have waited here for too long. Perhaps his divination technique was really wrong. Or perhaps this was the true auspicious omen. Without going deep into the lost treasure, how could he encounter danger? Su Zhuoyang's sword light converged. He stopped on the reef and stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking into the distance. Fellow immortal Su, is this the place? Leopard Master was impatient. As soon as he saw Su Zhuoyang stop, he immediately called out. That's right. Su Zhuoyang's voice wasn't as loud as before. He said lightly, this is a hidden fisherman's reef in the West Sea. It's only a few li in circumference. Without a special route, it's not easy to find. That person asked us to meet here. Where is he? Master Qing Chun also flew over. He put away his rainbow wand and looked around curiously. The time has passed. Su Zhuoyang sighed. That person, I'm afraid he has already left. Su Swansea. Leopard Master was displeased. He said somewhat anxiously, it's not that I want to criticize you. Isn't it better for you to set up the meeting place here than anything else? But the meeting place is so far away from here. We didn't encounter any particularly powerful sea beasts along the way. If there were any disturbances from sea beasts, how could our sect have arrived? Su Zhuoyang also smiled bitterly. He bowed and said, fellow immortals, it's all my fault. I've made you come here in vain. I apologize to you. It's okay. Su Xiangyue. Although Master Qing Chun was also somewhat regretful, he still comforted him. Xiangyue has already said that person was more cautious. This place was obviously chosen by him. He didn't want us to know. It's not your fault. If we don't go, maybe we won't have the fortune to not go. At this time, Xiaohua also flew over with Chu Muhuan. He was walking at the back. Their words were already filled with many inscriptions. However, Xiaohua only pricked up his ears. Looking at their expressions, he knew that it was already too late. He didn't care. It didn't matter whether they went to the West Sea lost treasure or not. Since it was a lost treasure, it was bound to be dangerous. He still had Zhang Luer in his space. It was best if they didn't take risks. He couldn't wait to return to the Elysium with Master Qing Chen. It depends on fate to get the West Sea lost treasure. For so many years, I don't know how many people have come to the West Sea to search for treasures, but I've never heard of anyone who got the West Sea lost treasure. We came late, so naturally, it's not fate. No one can be blamed. Chu Muhuan also comforted Su Zhuoyang. Su Swansea, don't you have a telepathic spell? Leopard Taoist Master urged. Send one. Maybe that person is waiting for you. Su Zhuoyang shook his head and said, I don't have that person's telepathic spell. Everything was arranged by that person. If I did, I would have sent it last night. Forget it. Leopard Taoist Master was disheartened. He looked around and asked, I'm unfamiliar with this place. I don't know if there are any useful sea beasts nearby. You and I, the five of us can't come here in vain, right? It's also good to hunt some. Don't. Su Zhuoyang hurriedly waved his hand and said, this place is woo-woo. Just as Su Zhuoyang objected to Leopard Taoist Master, the sound of a tsunami came from the middle of the reef group. Everyone looked up and saw a brightly colored reef slowly emerging from the sea. When the reef came out of the sea, a head that was a few feet in size rose from the sea. This head was triangular. On top of it were two bright black eyes that were extremely careful. Behind the head was a slender neck that was connected to the reef. Under the reef was a body that was several feet in size. This body was like a huge millstone. Around the body were four thick legs that were several feet in size. Wow, what a big turtle. When Xiaohua saw this thing, he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. This was the biggest turtle he had ever seen in his life. -11. Chapter 31:24. Just as Xiaohua's astonishment was born, the tortoise's gaze swept over him. Hiss! Xiaohua's heart trembled and he sucked in a breath of cold air. He felt as if he had been seen through from the inside out. This tortoise, I'm afraid it has the strength of a late nascent soul stage. Xiaohua immediately made a simple judgment of the tortoise's cultivation. When Su Zhuoyang saw the tortoise appear, his face immediately filled with ecstasy. He hurriedly flew over, but didn't dare to get too close. He stood in midair and saluted with cupped fists. "Greetings, Senior Xian Wu." The huge tortoise raised its head and let out a low roar. Waves of snow rolled up around its body, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth rushed into the tortoise's body. Immediately after, the tortoise's body flashed with a blue brilliance and rapidly shrank. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a short old man less than 3 feet tall. This old man had shifty eyes and a goatee on his lower jaw. In particular, this old man's back was a bit hunched, and he carried a medium-sized tortoise shell on his back. Seeing the huge tortoise transform into a human, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a strange light. However, when he saw the old man's appearance, he couldn't help but laugh. That's right, what was wrong with transforming into? Why did it have to be so ugly? Fortunately, the huge tortoise's transformation caused quite a stir. Just the waves near the coral reef were several feet tall. Amidst the sound of the waves, Xiao Hua's faint laughter wasn't too obvious. "Little friend Su." The huge tortoise's voice wasn't jerky. It even carried a trace of dignity as it said indifferently, "This old man didn't make an appointment with you at this time. This old man originally wanted to leave, but it just so happened that I didn't have to be on duty today, so I came here to rest a little. This old man wasn't waiting for you." "Senior Xian." Su Zhuoyang looked at the cultivators behind him who didn't even dare to breathe loudly and hurriedly said with a smile, "This one knows that I came late. I can't keep my promise anymore. It's this one's fault." This one also doesn't want to say anything more. However, these are all fellow immortals that this one invited from the 3 continents. If Senior is willing, could this one introduce them? Senior Xian nodded, tacitly agreeing. Seeing that the huge tortoise didn't refuse, Su Zhuoyang already had an idea. He pointed at Chu Mu Huan, Master Clean Dust, and Leopard Taoist Master and introduced them one by one. The 3 of them naturally also immediately came forward to greet him. Yes, that's right. This old man has heard of them before. Unfortunately, Senior Xian's expression did not change in the face of the 3 people's greetings, nor did he return their greetings. He only replied indifferently before turning his gaze to Xiao Hua. "And this one? Are you the descendant of a great scholar on the hidden immortal continent?" "I'm afraid that Senior Xian is mistaken," Su Zhuoyang said with a smile. "This is fellow immortal Xiao Hua Xiao. Although he was born in the Shi country of the hidden immortal continent, he is now a rogue cultivator of the West Sea." "Oh, cultivators of the West Sea? How come I didn't know?" Senior Xian's eyes lit up, and a layer of blue light flashed through them. Xiao Hua felt a strange fluctuation sweep across his body. Then, he heard Senior Xian say, "This old man knows most of the loose cultivators in the West Sea. Even if I don't know them, this old man knows where they came from. This little friend Xiao is a complete stranger." Hee. Speaking of fellow immortal Xiao, I still have to tell Senior Xian in detail. Su Zhuoyang laughed even more happily. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Fellow immortal Xiao, why don't you come and greet Senior Xian first?" "Yes, I'm Xiao Hua. Greetings, Senior Xian." Xiao Hua was quite easygoing as he bowed and said, "Get up." Senior Xian seemed to have noticed that Xiao Hua's cultivation was different. He did not treat the other 3 as he raised his hand and said, "This old man is Xian Cheng, the deputy of the West Sea Patrol under the West Sea Dragon Palace. Since little friend Xiao is a West Sea rogue cultivator, you must have heard of this old man's name." West Sea Patrol. Whether it was Chu Mu Huan, Master Qing Chen, or even Leopard's spiritual master, they were all shocked. Their expressions became even more respectful as they understood Su Zhuoyang's previous words. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had never heard of this name. He only regarded the West Sea as the Guihe Sea. However, he immediately changed into a respectful expression and said in a deadpan manner, "That's right. Senior's name is known to all cultivators in the West Sea. Although I haven't been in the West Sea for long, I've also heard of your name. However, this one has never seen you before, so I don't know you." Xiao Hua's words were quite archaic. Most of them were pronounced with the inscriptions of armor. Xian Cheng could hardly understand them, but Xiao Hua's respect was not fake. Then, Xiancheng was very satisfied with Xiaohua's respect and the other three's astonishment. He knew that his name was resounding and that Su Zhuoyang hadn't revealed anything, so he opened his mouth to ask about other things. However, Su Zhuoyang knew Xiaohua's ignorance and hurriedly said with a smile, "Speaking of fellow immortal Xiao, we're really fated to meet. We can be said to have become friends after a fight." "Oh? Why?" Xiancheng was startled and asked curiously, "Could it be little friend Xiao wasn't invited by you?" "That's right." Su Zhuoyang hurriedly explained the whole story. "In the end," he said, "this is also a chance given to me and the patrol. That's the great heavenly cycle star formation. I've only heard of it and have never seen it before." If fellow immortal Chu had not seen the records of this formation before, you would have recognized it at a glance. "I don't even dare to believe my eyes. With little friend Xiao, our great matter." N. Xiancheng was originally somewhat reluctant in his heart. Now that he heard Su Zhuoyang's roundabout persuasion, his heart was moved again. After all, there were many cultivators who were proficient in formations, but there were very few cultivators who understood this kind of ancient vicious formation like the great heavenly cycle star formation. Actually, we weren't a match for fellow immortal Xiao at all. We were defeated by fellow immortal Xiao in just a few rounds. Unfortunately, although he was born in Hidden Immortal Continents U province, he wasn't proficient in our Hidden Immortal Continents language. He only spoke the ancient inheritance of Confucian cultivators, so we spent a lot of time communicating with him. Su Zhuoyang struck while the iron was hot and said, "Moreover, when we passed through an island just now, we encountered a sea beast and were blocked. If it wasn't for fellow immortal Xiao, it would have been difficult for us to escape." "Oh? Which island?" Xiancheng's small eyes flickered again. "Tell me first." After Su Zhuoyang finished speaking, Xiancheng's face was very stunned. He looked at Xiaohua with some disbelief and said, "That sea beast was extremely powerful. Back then, it didn't submit to my discipline. Although it was fiercely taught by me once, I knew that it was in my heart. However, this old man also understood that it was indeed fate that allowed it to take human form. It was just a hair away from being able to take human form. It wasn't any worse than this old man. In these years, it already didn't come out to stir up trouble and concentrated on cultivating. Therefore, I didn't remind you. Who knew? It was actually killed by little friend Xiao. It's really fate making fools of people." "AI, yes. With this delay, I came late." Su Zhuoyang didn't miss the opportunity and said again. Although he didn't say anything, he had already attributed the reason for the delay to the sea beast. Finally, it faintly fell on Xiancheng. "I know. This matter can't be blamed on you. It was my negligence." Xiancheng nodded. "Thank you, Senior Xian." Su Zhuoyang was overjoyed. "Don't worry." Xiancheng waved his hand and looked at Xiaohua. "Little friend Xiao, what about the sea beast's demon core? Do you have any use for it?" Xiaohua was baffled and unconsciously looked at Su Zhuoyang. Su Zhuoyang hurriedly explained Xiancheng's meaning. "Oh, no use." Xiaohua took out the demon core without hesitation and directly handed it to Xiancheng. "If Senior Xian has any use for it, please take it. Little friend Xiao is really generous." Xiancheng was really stunned. Although he didn't reach out to take it, his two small eyes blinked and didn't leave the demon core in Xiaohua's hand. "Haha, Senior Xian, this thing is useless to fellow immortal Xiao. If you have a use for it, you can exchange it with fellow immortal Xiao. There's no need to hesitate," Su Zhuoyang hurriedly said. Xiancheng nodded and said, "It's indeed so. One of this old man's divine abilities is precisely lacking that sea beast's inner core. If little friend Xiao has anything you wish to exchange for, feel free to say it. My West Sea Dragon Palace is filled with rare treasures. This old man will definitely satisfy you." After Su Zhuoyang finished speaking, Xiaohua threw the demon core into Xiancheng's hand. He said with a smile, Xiaohua himself had many cultivation methods and countless spirit herbs. He didn't lack anything at all. As for the cultivation methods and rare treasures of the 3 continents, he was even more in the dark now. How could he make a suitable request? It was better to be generous now and look for an opportunity later. However, just as he opened his mouth, he was suddenly shocked in his heart. He thought of a cultivation method that he hadn't found for a long time. Therefore, Xiaohua hurriedly changed his words and said, I am very interested in the West Sea's water escape technique. I wonder if Senior Xian can part with it? Water escape technique? When Su Zhuoyang heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. He seemed to have never heard of this cultivation method. After Xiaohua explained, Su Zhuoyang smiled and turned his head and said, Senior Xian, fellow immortal Xiao is very interested in the West Sea's water avoidance technique. I won't ask for other cultivation methods for fellow immortal Xiao. This water avoidance technique is an extremely common cultivation method in the West Sea. If Senior has it, you don't have to be stingy. Xiancheng was very satisfied that Xiaohua gave him the demon core without any conditions. When he heard that Xiaohua only wanted the West Sea's water avoidance technique, he was even more happy. The water avoidance technique was something that could be seen everywhere in the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua's words were obviously giving the demon core to him. As a result, Xiancheng felt even more embarrassed. How could he take out a simple water avoidance technique? After thinking for a moment, Xiancheng stretched out his hand and took out a square jade eye from his sleeve. He handed it to Xiaohua and said, Fellow immortal Xiao, this is a water avoidance technique that I obtained when I accompanied the West Sea's army to conquer Jianghu. It is said that it was passed down from the Heavenly Abode River. Although this thing is not unique to my West Sea Dragon Palace, it is extremely mysterious. I'm afraid it is more suitable for you humans. This thing has been idle for thousands of years. I will give it to you now. Io, Senior Xian, this is a good thing. I thank Senior on behalf of fellow immortal Xiao. Su Zhuoyang hurriedly replied, and then explained to Xiaohua. Great. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He hurriedly received it and sent it into the space. He said respectfully, Many thanks for Senior Xian's gift. I am very grateful. -11. Chapter 31:25. Ha ha ha, good. Xiancheng saw that Xiaohua didn't even look at it. Obviously, he believed it and laughed. He took out a thin invite-like thing and handed it to Xiaohua. Little friend Xiao, this is this old man's voice transmission spell. When you finish cultivating the water avoidance spell, you can come to the Dragon Palace for a while. After listening to Su Zhuoyang's explanation, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He respectfully took the voice transmission spell and carefully put it away. Xiaohua had already obtained a lot of treasures in the West Sea before he started searching for them. He didn't want to follow the crowd to the west. Seeing Xiancheng like this, Su Zhuoyang was very happy. He knew that Xiancheng was cautious by nature. He was as timid as a mouse. Otherwise, he wouldn't only contact him. He would take care of everything else. Even the location of the meeting was a secret. Moreover, he had an intuition that even if he could arrive in time, Xiancheng might not appear in time, or there might be other tests. As for the thing that Xiancheng gave to Xiaohua, Su Zhuoyang understood Xiancheng's stinginess from the bottom of his heart. As Su Zhuoyang said, the water avoidance spell was nothing in the West Sea. It was different from the secret techniques of the Fecta sect. Any member of the water race in the West Sea Dragon Palace must know the water avoidance spell. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enter the Dragon Palace. Of course, the water avoidance spell was the innate ability of the water race. Most of the water race couldn't use it. However, there were good and bad water avoidance spells. The origin energy consumed, and the effects were different. Su Zhuoyang could tell that Xiancheng had at least dozens of water avoidance spells just by looking at his feet. However, Xiancheng didn't take out any water avoidance spell of the water race in the West Sea. Instead, he gave a water avoidance spell of the heavenly abode to Xiaohua. Su Zhuoyang didn't think that this water avoidance spell was anything special. However, he couldn't say anything about it. He could only say that this water avoidance spell was a good thing. Xiaohua didn't know any water avoidance spell. It was already good that he could get one from Xiancheng. Of course, Xiancheng had received benefits from Xiaohua. Although Xiaohua couldn't receive the corresponding rewards, these treasure hunts in the West Sea had been guaranteed. Xiancheng would definitely fulfill his promise and bring Su Zhuoyang and the others to the secret location of the West Sea. Furthermore, Su Zhuoyang already had a plan in his heart. If there were other fateful encounters in the West Sea Relic, he would definitely think of Xiao Hua and not let Xiao Hua waste the inner core of a fourth-grade essence Qi beast for nothing. Senior Xian. After Xiao Hua put away the voice transmission spell, Su Zhuoyang probed. This trip to the West Sea is really not easy for us, and it's really helpless that we missed the time. It wasn't easy for me to find a few good friends. Especially being able to find a formation grandmaster like fellow Taoist, Xiao has even increased our chances of finding treasures. What do you think? Although Xian Chang had already somewhat loosened up, he still hadn't officially agreed to Su Zhuoyang's request. Hearing Su Zhuoyang's words, he was still somewhat hesitant. Looking at the rolling waves in the distance and the birds and fishes enjoying themselves, he said hesitantly, we haven't even set out and already encountered a delay. I'm afraid this trip is inauspicious. Hee, Senior Xian knows. Before this junior came to the West Sea, I already used my sect's divination technique to divine the location, Su Zhuoyang said with a smile. Without waiting for Su Zhuoyang to finish speaking, Xinqing hastily called out, what's the result? Naturally, it's an auspicious omen, Su Zhuoyang said with a smile. Otherwise, how could I have arrived at the West Sea so smoothly? A hint of joy flashed through Xinqing's small eyes, but then he hesitated again. It seemed that he was really timid and cautious. Little friend Xiao, what do you think? Suddenly, Xinqiang turned his head and looked at the leisurely Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua didn't quite understand the words of the three continents, he still understood the first half of Xinqiang's sentence. Without any hesitation, he shrugged and spread his hands, saying, I've already obtained the water avoidance art. I have nothing else to ask for. And to be honest, I don't know what you're talking about. If you want to go, I'll go. If you don't want to go, I'm more than happy to oblige. At the side, Su Zhuoyang sighed in his heart. However, he still honestly explained Xiao Hua's words to Xinqiang. Unexpectedly, Xinqiang laughed loudly and waved his hand, saying, since I was able to meet little friend Xiao, a formation master, and I was able to obtain that item, this in itself is an auspicious omen. How can we not go? Good. Not only did Su Zhuoyang's suspended heart settle, but the others also showed joy on their faces. Everyone had come to the West Sea with great difficulty. Naturally, they weren't willing to return empty-handed. Quick, without waiting for Su Zhuoyang and the others to speak, Xinqiang opened his mouth, and a water-blue brilliance flew out like a fountain. When it rushed into the air, it immediately turned into specks of fireflies and fell on the sea surface. As soon as these fireflies touched the water surface, they immediately trembled and spread out in all directions with incomparable speed. Xinqiang's figure fell from mid-air. His foot was stepping on the sea surface. His whole body moved up and down with the waves, and his eyes were closed. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Xinqiang opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he took out a walking stick from somewhere and said with a smile, let's go. Immediately, Xinqiang's figure didn't leave the water surface. He quickly floated towards the west. Looking at his speed, it was actually not slower than the flying of ordinary cultivators. Seeing Xinqiang fly away, Su Zhuoyang didn't need to say anything to Master Qing Chuan and the others. That leopard Taoist master was the first to give chase. Master Qing Chuan and Chu Muhuan naturally wouldn't release their mounts. Similarly, faint clouds and mist appeared under their feet, carrying the two of them to fly into the distance. Let's go, fellow immortal Xiao. Su Zhuoyang originally wanted to urge his flying sword, but seeing that Xiao Hua still hadn't gotten up, he hurriedly said, this is all thanks to fellow immortal Xiao. Later, there's no need to say too much to me. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I don't care where we go on this trip. I'll only distribute things according to how much effort I put in. Yes, I understand. Su Zhuoyang nodded. His figure flew along with the sword light, and he didn't forget to explain. I definitely won't treat fellow immortal unfairly. Please rest assured, fellow immortal Xiao. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. His figure also turned into the wind, silently flying along with Su Zhuoyang. His mind was now on the bamboo slips, and he didn't care about Su Zhuoyang's words at all. With his cultivation, if he wanted to do something, could Su Zhuoyang and the others stop him? He didn't believe that these people didn't know this. Su Zhuoyang flew for a moment, then passed everyone and flew to Xinqiang's side. He seemed to be discussing something with Xian Cheng. Behind the two of them was Leopard Taoist, followed by Master Qing Chun and Chu Mu Huan. Xiao Hua himself was at the back. They watched as the sun rose from the east and reached the middle of the sky. Then, it passed by the crowd and left their backs behind. Fog rose above the surface of the sea. Dusk had arrived. The originally green sky was now dark. Although there was no blood red from the burning clouds, the orange-red sunlight shone down listlessly. The sea and the sky were filled with decadence. On the surface of the sea that didn't seem to have any signs at all, Xian Cheng suddenly stopped. He waved his hand, and immediately, a drop of water-blue brilliance fell into the sea. This brilliance was the same as the brilliance that Xian Cheng spoke of earlier, rushing in all directions with incomparable speed. Xian Cheng's words were too sudden, and Su Zhuoyang was caught off guard. His figure flew several feet away in an instant. When he stopped and saw Xian Cheng casting the technique, he couldn't help but be stunned. He looked around and said with extreme astonishment, "Senior Xian, this is the place you were talking about?" "That's right." Xian Cheng nodded indifferently. "It's here. It can't be." Su Zhuoyang knew that what he said was somewhat inappropriate, but he couldn't help but ask curiously, "The West Sea relic is in the depths of the West Sea, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is all dried up. I thought that we would have to fly to the extreme west for several days, or even more than 10 days. How could we stop here? The spiritual qi here is abundant, and it's still very far from the extreme west. How could it be?" Su Zhuoyang said, "How could it be?" a few times. Wizard Qing Qian and the others also flew closer, and they were also puzzled. He, who said that the West Sea relic must be in the extreme west? Who said that the West Sea relic must be in a place where the spiritual qi is dried up? Xian Cheng sneered. "That's all hearsay. I've been patrolling the West Sea for who knows how many years, and I know the territory of the West Sea like the back of my hand. There is no spiritual qi in the extreme west, and the sea insects can't even grow there. How could the West Sea relic be there?" But the West Sea relic was left behind because of the war that annihilated the Taoists. The war was so fierce that it caused the spiritual qi in the extreme west to be dried up, and it couldn't recover for 1,000,000 years. Chu Mu Huan whispered, "So the West Sea relic went to the extreme west. Humph, this kind of baseless guess has ruined many immortals." Xian Cheng didn't take it seriously. He looked at the rippling sea water and said, "They went to the extreme west where the spiritual qi was dried up. Not only did they not find the West Sea relic, but they also lost their lives there. There's something strange here." Leopard Immortal's withered yellow eyes turned slightly, and he suddenly said. Xian Cheng raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Junior Leopard, you found something strange?" Leopard Immortal's face showed a trace of embarrassment, but Xian Cheng's cultivation, age, and identity were enough to call him Junior Leopard. He could only point his finger and said, "I followed you all the way here. Although I didn't see any sea beasts, there were a lot of sea fish, sea shrimps, and seabirds. But here, it seems that there are no living creatures within a radius of 100 miles. Even seaweed and seaweed are rare." "Yes, that's right." Master Qing Chun and the others hurriedly used their divine senses. Sure enough, they saw that the West Sea under their feet was exactly as Leopard Immortal said. "Junior Leopard, you deserve to be a spiritual creature of the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm," Xian Cheng praised. "I've been patrolling the West Sea for who knows how many years, and I don't know how many times I've passed by here, but I've never found anything strange like this." "Alas," Su Zhuoyang sighed and said, "the territory of the West Sea is unimaginably vast. The sea surface of 100 miles is just a drop in the ocean. We've only been flying on the sword for a moment. How could we notice the situation here?" -11. Chapter 31:26. Then, Su Zhuoyang took out a jade eye and looked at it for a moment. He said with a wry smile, "From the sea map given by Senior Xian, it seems that this place is much closer to the lava island than the Fisherman's Reef. My ink cloud pupil was found in this sea area." Xian Cheng said proudly, "My friend Su must have seen it, right?" "Yes." Su Zhuoyang nodded. "I've seen it a long time ago, and so have you. We all think that what is written in it should be true. But Master Ching Chun was a little puzzled. Since this is the location of the West Sea relic, then how could Ink Cloud Pupil be here? I don't know, Xiansheng said with a smile, but in my opinion, this West Sea relic has been in the West Sea for a long time. I'm afraid that some immortals have already come to look for it. This Ink Cloud Pupil should be left by them after they failed to break the formation, right? Yes, you're right. Master Ching Chun nodded slightly, knowing that what Xiansheng said was reasonable. In my early years, I secretly went down there according to the records of Ink Cloud Pupil. Xiansheng said mysteriously, I've also seen the formation of the relic. So I sent a message to Su Zhuoyang and asked him to invite his best friends to come together. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other and were overjoyed. At the same time, they understood why Su Zhuoyang looked for them. Obviously, he had come prepared. All right, Xiansheng spoke to everyone while looking at the surface of the sea. While this old man is inspecting the surrounding 10,000 li of sea, let's discuss everything that happened after we entered. Although there are many records in Ink Cloud Pupil, they are not detailed and many places are vague. We have to make a foolproof plan. Yes, I'll listen to your instructions. Su Zhuoyang nodded and agreed. But when he saw Xiao Hua, who was a few feet away from him, squinting his eyes as if he was comprehending something, he said with a smile, Fellow immortal Xiao? Oh, please. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and said, Here, I can explain to fellow immortal Xiao. This is the most famous West Sea relic among the 3 continents and 4 seas. According to old legends, it's the place where the ancient Taoists were annihilated. Su Zhuoyang did not hide it and explained, Fellow immortal Xiao has Taoist cultivation. If you can get something from the relic, you will be like a tiger with wings. Oh, a relic of the West Sea? The place where the Tao sect was annihilated? Xiao Hua raised his brows in astonishment. No one knew that the Tao sect was living a carefree life in the Dawn Rain continent. Yes, I won't lie to you. Su Zhuoyang said solemnly, Fellow immortal, if you can lend us a hand and go to the place where the treasures are, you will definitely be able to get a share that you like. Now, we need to discuss how to enter and how to deal with some unexpected situations. If fellow immortal is willing, I can explain everything to fellow immortal. Forget it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. That would be too troublesome. Why don't you all discuss this? If you need this Xiao's help, feel free to tell this Xiao. I trust fellow immortal Su. Su Zhuoyang's heart warmed. He bowed and said, Thank you for your trust, fellow immortal Xiao. Soon after, Xiao Hua comprehended the eye-clearing technique. Xiansheng and the other 4 discussed their next move. Unknowingly, the night had already covered the entire horizon. Although there was a moon tonight, at some unknown time, the originally clear sky during the day was filled with clouds. The full moon was covered by thick clouds. The entire West Sea seemed to not have a trace of light. All right, Xiansheng's voice was heard. Everything has been discussed more or less. It's useless to think too much. Let's talk about it after we go in. We have to act according to the situation. Yes, we will listen to Senior's instructions. Taoist Leopard and the others agreed in a low voice. Woo! A strange sound was heard, as if a hurricane was dancing. Xiansheng raised the walking stick in his hand. The tip of the walking stick flashed with a gray brilliance, and the sound was heard. Go! Xiansheng pointed the walking stick at the surface of the sea. Woo woo woo! A ghost-like wailing sound was heard from a point on the sea surface. The spiritual energy within a radius of 100 miles surged towards this point. That small gray point suddenly swelled and actually became a whirlpool the size of a bowl. Hua hua hua! Following the whirlpool, the seawater gradually expanded and gradually went deeper. Who? Just when everyone's gaze fell on the whirlpool, Xiansheng suddenly raised his head. His 2 small eyes were like pitch-black gems, flashing with brilliance as he looked at the distant night sky. Xiao Hua and the others were also greatly alarmed. They hurriedly turned their heads. Whoosh! Before the 5 people could see clearly, a crisp sound was heard from the sea surface 100 feet away. A thumb-sized jade light rushed into the air. Roar! A low and deep hiss was heard from that jade light. Countless waves rose from the sea surface out of nowhere and rushed into the jade light. Immediately, A huge python that was several tens of feet long and as thick as a water bucket appeared from the jade light. You. Xiancheng's expression changed greatly. He said in astonishment, "Why are you here? You've been following this old man all this time?" Jiji. An unusually coquettish and especially strange sharp sound came from the huge python's mouth. That huge python slowly shrunk again. After a moment, a monster with the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a python wearing tight armor appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This servant felt that you were strange. The snake woman opened her mouth and her snake tongue flashed out. She said in a sharp voice, "You're not on duty today. Why didn't you rest in the Dragon Palace? Instead, you sneaked out. So it turned out that you came here. It's just that this servant doesn't understand. What are you doing here?" "By Hao Jiao," Xiancheng sneered. "This old man is the deputy of the West Sea Patrol. You're also the deputy of the West Sea Patrol. In terms of age, you're still this old man's junior. What qualifications do you have to question this old man? If you want to follow this old man and find out this old man's shortcomings, then step on this old man to seek the position of the West Sea Patrol, then you're wrong." "Ha ha ha, old geezer Xian. You finally said what's in your heart." By Hao Jiao laughed loudly. "I didn't expect that after enduring this servant for so many years, you finally said it today." "Humph. How could this old man not know that you want to step on this old man to rise up?" Xiancheng sneered. "You've stirred up this old man's wrongs in every possible way in front of the patrol, and you've even said this old man's shortcomings in front of the Dragon Palace's guards. You're just short of flattering the Dragon King of the West Sea." Teske. By Hao Jiao didn't seem to be angry. He smacked his lips and that strange snake tongue rapidly retracted. "You old fart. You don't have any ability at all. You only know how to patrol the sea, and you're even blocking this servant's path. If this servant wants to be the patrol, then shouldn't this servant first move you away? You and I both know this very well. There's no need to say it clearly in front of outsiders. I just don't know why you dare to say the words you've been holding back for over 1,000 years today. If this servant hadn't followed you, I still don't know what you've united these people from the 3 continents to do here. What gave you the courage to do so? Is there any need for you to care what this old man does?" After Xiancheng finished speaking, he seemed to have some regret. He waved his hand and said, "These are all this old man's close friends. This old man merely brought them out for a walk. Now that it's late, this old man will bring them back to the Dragon Palace." That's pretty good." By Hao Jiao nodded. "Since that's the case, this servant will return to the Dragon Palace and report to the patrol tomorrow, or invite a few close friends over. The sea scenery here is very beautiful. We'll have to stay here for a few more days." "That's right, old geezer Xian. How many days do you think this servant should ask for leave from the patrol?" You. Xiancheng had never expected that there would be someone following behind him. Moreover, this person was the one he couldn't deal with the most, and the one who opposed him with equal harshness. Thinking of this, Xiancheng's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. "Heh. What? Old geezer Xian, do you still want to kill me?" By Hao Jiao didn't seem to be afraid. She seemed to be teasing him, not to mention that this servant has already left my jade eyes before coming out. Even in this West Sea, you and I are both patrol deputies. Do you think, with these 5 people, you can definitely kill this servant? If you don't, as long as you make a move, your thousands of years of hiding and enduring hardships will all turn into flowing water. Not only will you not be able to surpass this servant, you will also be punished by the iron law of the West Sea Dragon Palace." Hearing this, Xiancheng was immediately discouraged. He knew very well that in this West Sea, he definitely couldn't kill Bai Hao Jiao. This was also one of the reasons why she dared to follow him. "Since there's no other way, why don't you tell me your plan?" Bai Hao Jiao chuckled. Hearing this, everyone felt a chill. If this servant is interested, perhaps, all right. Since things had come to this, Xiancheng had no other choice. He could only tell the whole story in full detail. This place is really a treasure of the West Sea? Even though Bai Hao Jiao was also the patrol deputy of the West Sea, she didn't dare to believe Xiancheng's words. "If you don't believe me, feel free to leave," Xiancheng said indifferently. This old man will take these fellow immortals down. Hee, even if this servant doesn't believe you, I still want to take a look. How could Bai Hao Jiao let go of such an excellent opportunity? She asked, however, how should this servant divide it with you? Naturally, it's 10%. Xian Chang had already thought about it. He answered very helplessly. No, this servant wants 20%. Bai Hao Jiao replied without any trace of politeness. How is that possible? Xian Cheng almost jumped up in anger. He said furiously. Bai Hao Jiao glanced at Xiaohua and the others. Her cold gaze caused goosebumps to rise on Xiaohua and the others. If this servant's guess is correct, these fellow immortals will all get 10%. Bai Hao Jiao said indifferently, what about the remaining 50%? Old geezer Xian, you'll get 50%. This servant will get 20%, and you'll get 30%. It's more than anyone else. Are you still not happy? Think about it yourself. If you don't agree, we'll go our separate ways. Not to mention you getting 50%. Even if you get 100%, I'm afraid you won't get 30%. -11. Chapter 31:27. Facing Bai Hao Jiao's threat, Xin Cheng was helpless. This was also the reason why, even though he was an elder, he had always been suppressed by Bai Hao Jiao. Fine. Xin Cheng thought for a moment, then nodded and said, this old man agrees. However, you still have to contribute to this matter. Otherwise, this servant naturally knows this. Isn't there a saying in the hidden immortal continent? How can this servant be a freeloader? This servant will help you right now. Bai Hao Jiao said with a charming smile. Then, he lowered his head to look at the whirlpool that was as thick as a bull's mouth and the hurricane that had already disappeared. He opened his mouth and roared. A blue light rushed out and landed on the whirlpool. Woo, that gust of wind swept up again, and the whirlpool rapidly expanded. A hurricane gradually formed around the whirlpool. When the whirlpool was 3 meters wide, Bai Hao Jiao swung his snake tail, and a layer of water blue runes strangely appeared and hit the hurricane. Whoosh, just like the upheaval that Xiaohua encountered on the heavenly sea, the hurricane suddenly fell and smashed into the whirlpool. With a loud rumble, the whirlpool that was already 300 meters deep became even more turbulent and rushed into the depths of the Western Sea. Let's go, Xian Cheng sighed. Water mist appeared under his feet and carried his somewhat tired body into the whirlpool. Bai Hao Jiao and the others also followed. Xiaohua was also the last to enter. When he entered the whirlpool, he looked inside and unconsciously stuck out his tongue, feeling an indescribable sense of disbelief. This was a channel of water that was 3 meters wide. The whirlpool spun from time to time, blocking the dark green water outside the whirlpool. This rotation was extremely fast, and what the naked eye could see was different. The spinning waves were frozen there like ice sculptures, extremely spectacular. Looking down, it was dark green again. The channel formed by the whirlpool seemed to extend as far as the eye could see. Boom! Just as Xiaohua entered the whirlpool, the dark green water behind him closed, and the water behind him chased after him. Xiaohua activated his vast righteous energy and used a sword technique to fly on his sword. His body directly fell into the sea. This island was actually very deep. It took the 7 of them 2 hours to reach the bottom of the sea. Xian Cheng waved his hand, and a pearl the size of a fist flew out of his hand. As the pearl's brilliance was waved out, the seawater within 100 feet of it was pushed away by the brilliance. Water avoidance pearl. Xiaohua's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but smack his lips, secretly saying, this is a good thing. Old Xian, is he here? Bai Hao Jiao's gaze swept across the area. He saw that there were both silt and reefs at the bottom of the sea. There were also pitch-black things on the reefs. If he looked closely, he would see that those things were made up of tens of thousands of pitch-black insects. Of course it's not here. Xian Cheng said coldly. Come with me. Heh. What's the point of hiding here? Bai Hao Jiao sneered. He was not afraid of Xian Cheng having any tricks up his sleeve. He followed Xian Cheng and floated to a certain spot. The calmer Bai Hao Jiao was, the more guilty Xian Cheng felt. Even if he had some plans, he didn't dare to test them now. After the time it took to eat a meal, a pitch-black reef appeared before everyone's eyes. Xiansheng listened down and pointed with a finger, saying, "It's here." "Oh, here? It seems there's nothing special about it." Bai Haojiao floated to the reef without a care. Blue light flashed in his eyes as he spoke in a strange manner. "You'll know once you use my West Sea's dusk transformation technique," Xian Cheng said indifferently. "This was originally cast by me, so I'll leave it to you. If you don't use your water spiritual power, how will you be worthy of the 20% of the lost treasure?" Dusk transformation technique? Why did you think of casting the dusk transformation technique here? Bai Haojiao was quite confused. "If you want the lost treasure and want to enter the treasury, then use it." Xiansheng didn't answer him. Instead, he urged him. Bai Haojiao coldly looked at Xiansheng, as if he was thinking about the truth of Xiansheng's words. His slightly protruding snake eyes flashed with a faint scarlet light. Xiansheng didn't show any weakness. Although there wasn't any special light in his beady eyes, he stared straight at the snake eyes without backing down. "I'm tired from casting the technique just now. I'll rest for a while more." Bai Haojiao's expression suddenly changed, and he smiled somewhat stiffly. "Oh? Haven't you always boasted that your cultivation is deeper than mine? Haven't you always said that I'm not worthy of being the vice patrol envoy in front of the patrol envoy? Why is it that I've just entered the West Seas lost my spiritual power today? Do you think I'll believe you?" Xiansheng smiled faintly. "Of course, it's fine if you don't contribute. You must give up 5% of the share that we've just discussed." Old turtle shell. Are you threatening me?" Bai Haojiao's expression turned even colder as he said angrily. Hearing Bai Haojiao call him an old turtle shell, Xiansheng's face turned red. He almost stuttered as he shouted, You can contribute if you want. I'll cast the technique now. Wait, I'll enter the treasure house. Let's see what face you have to snatch credit from me." "Hee, so what if I snatch credit from you? It's not like I've been snatching it for a day or two." Bai Haojiao saw that Xiansheng was anxious, and he was very happy in his heart. He smiled again and said, "However, today, I don't dare to not contribute. You can wait on the side." As he spoke, Bai Haojiao glanced at Su Zhuoyang and the others, and flew out from the light of the water avoidance pearl. Once Bai Haojiao fell into the sea, his body immediately flashed with blue water light. His body rapidly expanded, and in a moment, he returned to his original form of a huge python that was dozens of feet long. Roar. Although they were at the bottom of the sea, the huge python's roar still reached Xiaohua's ears. Following the roar, the light of the water avoidance pearl quickly converged, and the surrounding sea water immediately swayed. An indescribable heavy pressure passed through the light, and Xiaohua's body immediately gave birth to a layer of faint, dark golden light. Looking at Su Zhuoyang's body, he also gave birth to a silver-white light that protected him. Wizard Qing Qin's body flashed with Buddhist light. Chu Muhuan's body gave birth to a green gas, and Leopard Spiritual Master's thick, earthy yellow demon aura transformed into a strange armor. "Oh!" Xiaohua's gaze fell on the flashing light around everyone, and he seemed to understand something. The four people's light was different, and their body attributes were probably not the same. The reason Su Zhuoyang and the others were here was to break the formation. Bai Haojiao rushed into the sea. Following her roar, layers of blue light were emitted from her huge body. Wherever the light passed, countless thin strands of light would rush against the light and rush into her body. Following the entry of these thin strands of light, the huge python's body gradually became crystal clear. When the huge python's body was almost transparent, the huge python's body twisted rapidly in midair, and the entire seawater at the bottom of the sea was completely stirred up by this huge python. Following the stirring of the seawater, a huge strange blue rune slowly emerged from the huge python's body. It was as if it was shedding its shell, and it fell inch by inch. After the time it took to eat half a meal, the huge python that seemed to have gone crazy slowly stopped. The surrounding sea water was still shaking violently, and it supported the huge rune as it fell onto the pitch-black reef that was several acres in size. Boom! There was also a huge sound, and the entire seabed was shaken. Xiaohua could even feel the impact of the reef under his feet. Following the descent of this rune, a layer of blue brilliance rapidly rippled across the entire pitch-black reef. Wherever the light passed, the pitch-black reefs would change visibly. The originally pitch-black worms instantly withered and dried up under the light of the twilight transformation technique, and then slowly solidified. By the time the entire reef was covered by the twilight transformation, all the pitch-black darkness had turned into a layer of withering, covering the reef like a tortoise's shell. The moment the twilight transformation disappeared, a layer of yellow sand slowly emerged from the four sides of the dried-up area. It was precisely the opposite of the twilight transformation's light that extended towards the center of the reef. Sha 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 sha. The sound of silkworms swallowing mulberry leaves echoed in everyone's ears. At this moment, Bai Haojiao had turned back into her human form. Her face was pale, and she didn't return to the light of the water avoidance pearl. Instead, she distanced herself from Xiancheng, as if she was afraid that Xiancheng would plot against her. However, her gaze was the same as Xiaohua and the others. She was very puzzled as she watched the yellow sand gradually cover the entire reef. Soon, the reef was completely covered in yellow sand, but the reef didn't change at all. Old tortoiseshell, you dared to deceive this servant. Bai Haojiao's pale face suddenly became angry, and she hurriedly cursed. Ignorant. Xiancheng sneered. This old man only said that the twilight transformation was effective, but I didn't say that it would succeed. If it was a simple twilight transformation, wouldn't this Western Sea's lost treasure have been discovered long ago? As he spoke, Xiancheng reached into his bosom and took out a purple-red pearl smaller than his thumb. Although the pearl was small, it was extremely brilliant. Traces of purple and red lightning rapidly flashed within the pearl. An aura that Xiaohua was very familiar with emanated from the pearl. Lightning condensation pearl? Bai Haojiao frowned and asked curiously, could it be that you still want this item? Nonsense. Xiancheng said coldly, do you think this old man's 30% was taken for free? This old man has only encountered 2 lightning condensation pearls in my life. Last time, this old man already used one to open the seal. This is the last one. If this time, we still can't break the formation and enter the treasury, this old man has no other choice. Bai Haojiao knew how precious this lightning condensation pearl was. Even the Western Sea Dragon Palace had a shortage of this item. If Xiancheng used this item to break the seal, she could only comply with Xiancheng's arrangements. Gotcha! Xiancheng waved his hand, and the lightning condensation pearl landed on the yellow sand. He then pointed his finger, and a blue watery light rushed out, and the lightning condensation pearl immediately shattered. Zalala! Countless lightning bolts exploded from the pearl, as if 10,000 flood dragons had pounced onto the yellow sand, and those seemingly sturdy yellow sand instantly turned into powder under the lightning, disappearing into the water. -11. Chapter 31:28. Alas! Seeing this, Bai Haojiao sighed and said faintly, this is the bottom of the West Sea. Where did the lightning come from? If it weren't for the thunder-condensing bead, even if others came here, they wouldn't be able to distinguish the true appearance of the treasury entrance. As the yellow sand disappeared from the reef, the thing below was revealed. Everyone couldn't wait to use the divine sense technique and the clear eyes technique to look at that side. Xiaohua naturally released his divine sense without hesitation. Hiss! When Xiaohua saw the several acres of land, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The shock in his heart was unparalleled. Xiaohua had seen the decline of the whirling world in the ruins of the Buddhist sect, and he had also seen the decline of the Million Buddha painting. He had also seen the real ruins of the Buddhist sect in the Million Buddha painting. Although those places could be described as vast, they were filled with a kind of old and perished aura. It was a kind of aura of passing away. And this several acres of land was actually a kind of Buddhist array. A Buddhist array that seemed to be laid on a blue stone. This Buddhist array was engraved with 18 arhats of different figures. These arhats were either empty-handed or holding Buddhist staffs. There were even 2 mighty arhats who were angrily subduing dragons and tigers. These 18 arhats were huge in size, and they were divided into 18 regions, completely occupying an area of several acres. Under the careful sweep of Xiao Hua's divine sense, he understood. The figures of these 18 arhats were not truly engraved on the blue stone. Instead, they were formed by countless Sanskrit characters that flickered with a faint Buddhist light. These runes quietly stagnated on the blue stone, as if they were part of the blue stone. Looking at these blue stone emitting a faint Buddhist light, Xiao Hua thought without hesitation that this blue stone might not be blue stone. It was probably formed by billions of Sanskrit characters. 18 arhats array? How is this possible? Master Ching Chun was even more shocked than the others. He almost blurted out, "How could the secret array of the Western paradise appear here?" Master Ching Chun, this Buddhist array. Su Zhuoyang was also shocked by this Buddhist array. At this time, he came back to his senses, and his face was very ugly. He turned to look at Xian Cheng and asked Master Ching Chen, "This is our Buddhist sect's very famous Buddhist array, called the 18 Arhat array. Su Tanyue, please take a look. The one sitting on the deer is Arhat sitting deer. The others are Arhat holding bowl, Arhat totem, Arhat riding elephant, Arhat laughing lion, Arhat happy, Arhat reaching hand, Arhat meditation, Arhat ear digging, Arhat pouch, Arhat long brows, Arhat guarding door, Arhat sitting meditation, Arhat crossing river, Arhat subduing dragon, and Arhat subduing tiger. They are the 18 Arhats, the 18 eminent monks of my Elysium. Each of them has their own divine abilities and methods. This 18 Arhat formation has even condensed the divine abilities of the 18 Arhats within it. Unless one is an almighty, one cannot break the formation." As he said that, Venerable Ching Chun looked at Xian Cheng and smiled bitterly. "Senior Xian, if you want us to break this Buddha formation, I'm afraid it's impossible." Yes, the little nun is right. Bai Haojiao's expression returned to normal. He glanced at Venerable Ching Chun and asked Xian Cheng, "This Buddha formation has a vast aura. I was intimidated by these 18 arhats at first glance. Moreover, this Buddha formation is divided into 18 regions. None of the regions can be broken by us. Not to mention that the 18 regions are connected together. I don't believe that these 18 regions have no connection with each other. Old turtle shell, do you have this ability?" Hee, Xiansheng sneered and said, "This old man has already seen this 18 Arhat formation. Otherwise, how could I let fellow immortal Su find a Buddhist formation master? How could I let fellow immortal Su find 4 fellow immortals who can control the 5 elements primordial qi?" "Oh, you've already prepared?" Bai Haojiao was somewhat surprised. "You can break the Buddha formation?" Then, he looked at the surrounding cultivators in disbelief and said in surprise, "Just based on these few cultivators with primordial qi of no more than 3rd or 4th stage? How would I know if I don't try?" Xian Cheng said indifferently, "This old man has lived for so many years. Although my cultivation can't compare to yours, my knowledge should surpass yours, right?" Bai Haojiao knew about the grudge between him and Xian Cheng. This kind of conflict of interest could not be easily resolved. This time, it was only a temporary cooperation. When they returned to the Dragon Palace, it would still be the same scheming as before. Therefore, he did not continue the conversation. "Little friend Xiao, you know about formations. Let's see how you can break it." Xian Cheng was not in a hurry to say the method of breaking it. Instead, he looked at Xiao Hua. "Yes, this Xiao will take a careful look first." Xiao Hua nodded and released his divine sense to examine carefully. "Oh, you actually know about formations?" Bai Haojiao did not expect that the most silent Xiao Hua was actually a formation master. Moreover, seeing Xiao Hua actually release his divine sense, it was even more inconceivable. "You are actually a Taoist disciple? There is nothing impossible in this world." Xian Cheng replied indifferently, "Do you think that everything in this world is in your eyes?" Xiao Hua closed his eyes and released his divine sense. After a full meal's time, he opened his eyes and said, "This 18 Arhat formation is really powerful. The 18 Arhats are like the same person. They are tightly intertwined and inseparable. If we want to break the formation, it is absolutely impossible with just the few of us. Of course, Xiao Hua changed the topic. With the few people that Senior Xin found, this Xiao thinks that if we use the 5 elements formation of Taoism to divide these 18 arhats into 5 parts and cut off their connections, then it is not impossible to break them one by one. In particular, we just want to enter and do not need to completely break it. As long as we break one part, we can make this Buddhist formation reveal a flaw. Su Zhuoyang, who was at the side, naturally explained what Xiao Hua said again. Good. Xian Cheng clapped and said, Little friend Xiao has the same idea as this old man. I just don't know if little friend has a method to break the formation. Senior Xian. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Breaking the formation is easier said than done. Although this Xiao can see it, if this Xiao really wants to break the formation, this Xiao still has to think hard. Not to mention a few days, even dozens of days of racking my brains may not be able to do it. Since Senior Xian has already prepared, there is no harm in taking it out and letting this one see. Hee. Xian Cheng waved his hand and a jade eye appeared in his hand. He handed it to Xiao Hua and said, Little friend Xiao, take a look. Seeing this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at Su Zhuoyang with a bitter smile. This Xiao can't bear it. Please explain it to me. And Su Zhuoyang nodded and took it. After he finished reading, he nodded slightly and told Xiao Hua. It turned out that what was recorded in the Jade Eye was a 5 elements formation of Taoism. Although this formation looked simple and Xiao Hua had never seen it before, it was similar to what Xiao Hua said. Xian Cheng was going to use the 5 elements formation against the 18 arhats. Senior Xian, it seems that this 5 elements formation needs formation plates and formation flags, right? Xiao Hua asked with a bitter smile. Even if it needs the 4 immortals to refine it, I'm afraid that with Taoism's magic power, there will be a conflict? Formation plates? Formation flags? Xian Cheng was slightly stunned and said curiously, This old man only knows about Taoism's formation diagrams and has never heard of any formation flags or formation plates. After he finished speaking, he looked at Su Zhuoyang who was explaining and smiled. Originally, to restrain this 18 arhats formation, the 4 symbols catalog of the 1,000 demons sacred realm is the most suitable. Unfortunately, this old man has no fate to go to the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Even little friend Leopard has probably never seen the 1,000 demons sacred realm's sacred array catalog, right? Hearing this, Leopard's spiritual master's face revealed a rare awkwardness and said with a smile, Junior's cultivation is shallow and has only heard of the Great Sage Hall. I have never known where this Great Sage Hall is. Therefore, I have never seen one of the Sacred Array Catalog's 4 symbols catalog. Yes, little friend Leopard, who is considered a reputable demon cultivator in the 1,000 demons sacred realm, has never seen it before. How could this old man get it? Xian Cheng shook his sleeves and a formation diagram that was flashing with brilliance flew out. He said with a smile, Therefore, this old man could only settle for the next best thing and racked my brains to get this 5 elements evil punishing formation diagram. 5 elements evil punishing formation diagram. Bai Haojiao heard and immediately screamed, You actually dared to sneak into the Dragon Palace's treasury and dared to steal this 5 elements evil punishing formation diagram from the treasury? Hee, what's wrong? Xian Cheng said with a cold smile. You think this old man doesn't know that you went in before? Where did you get that jade water spirit from? If not for the jade water spirit, how could your cultivation catch up to this old man? Bai Haojiao was also somewhat shocked and pointed at Xian Cheng, not knowing what to say. The Dragon Palace's treasury is also not yours. Wouldn't it be a waste if this old man didn't take it? Xian Cheng sneered. How did you enter the Dragon Palace's treasury? This old man knows clearly. Formation diagram? At the side, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He could ignore the tit-for-tat between Xian Cheng and Bai Haojiao, but he couldn't ignore the formation diagram. He really didn't know what the formation diagram was. Xiao Hua interrupted the two's bickering and reached out to ask, Can this junior take a look? This time, Xian Cheng hesitated slightly. Although he didn't quite understand what Xiao Hua meant, he naturally knew that Xiao Hua wanted to take a look from his hand gesture. However, inside the water avoidance pearl, in the depths of the West Sea, he didn't care about Xiao Hua's strength. However, He didn't dare to give this formation diagram that was related to entering the West Sea's lost treasure to Xiao Hua. He. Xiao Hua immediately understood and said to Su Zhuoyang with slight embarrassment, "This Xiao didn't say anything. You wait and listen to Senior Xian's instructions. If there's anything this Xiao needs to do, please speak." Su Zhuoyang naturally understood Xian Cheng's cautiousness and explained Xiao Hua's words. Xian Cheng nodded and took out 4 jade eyes from his sleeve and handed them to Su Zhuoyang, saying, "Little friend Su, this is the method to control the 5 elements evil punishing formation. You and these 3 little friends can comprehend it. This old man will place the formation diagram on it. After you've finished comprehending it, we'll join forces to break the formation." "Yes, this junior understands." Su Zhuoyang took the jade eyes and looked at them. He distributed different jade eyes to Master Qing Chun, Chu Muhuan, and Leopard Taoist Master. He also took one for himself and sat cross-legged to comprehend it. -11. Chapter 31-29. Bai Haojiao. Xian Cheng glanced at Bai Haojiao in the distance and said, "This is the bottom of the West Ocean, a place where water-type spiritual energy is abundant. Moreover, we are from the Sea Clan, so in this 5 elements evil punishing formation, the Water Clan should have an absolute advantage. Originally, with the help of 4 little friends, this old man had a 40% chance of breaking the formation. Now that you're here, that chance has increased by another 20%. Our chance will be in this one move." Old turtle shell, are you trying to squeeze me dry?" Bai Haojiao laughed coquettishly, and the old turtle shell spoke again. "Damn it, then you should have a taste of this old man's turtle shell." Xian Cheng's face turned red, and he became angry. He then waved his sleeve, and another jade eye flew in front of Bai Haojiao. "This is the formation that this old man comprehended in the past. You should have a taste too." What's so good about your turtle shell?" Bai Haojiao laughed again. "It's not like I haven't tasted it before. If you want to let me know the benefits of your turtle shell, then work hard. When we get out of this West Ocean lost treasure, this old man wants to have a taste of your turtle shell." Bai Haojiao's teasing was very obvious, and Xian Cheng's face turned red. His beady eyes flashed with a peculiar brilliance, and he looked at the others who were comprehending with their eyes closed, and said with a lewd smile, "Since you want to know, then this old man will definitely satisfy you. Don't worry, this old man will let you know what it means to be strong with age." Bai Haojiao laughed, and gave him a coquettish look, as if the previous grudge had completely disappeared. He took out the jade eye, and a trace of blue light appeared in it as he carefully looked at it. Seeing that the 5 of them were all comprehending the jade eye, Xian Cheng's expression changed, and he flew up again, out of the brilliance of the water avoidance pearl, and towards the 18 Arhat formation, and looked at the formations one by one. After 2 full days, Xian Cheng's face became somewhat impatient, and the others opened their eyes one by one. "Everyone." Xian Cheng glanced at Bai Haojiao and said with a bitter smile, "You all know that this old man and Bai Haojiao are the vice inspectors of the West Ocean, and we can't leave the Dragon Palace for a long time. This old man asked for leave to come here, and presumably Bai Haojiao is the same. We don't have much time left." "Yes, I understand." Su Zhuoyang exchanged glances with Wizard Qing Chun and the others before replying, "We've already understood how to control the formation map. As long as we follow your instructions, we can activate the formation map and imprison the 18 Arhat array in a short time." "How long?" Xian Cheng raised his hand and stopped Su Zhuoyang from continuing. He asked somewhat impatiently. "It can probably stop them for the time it takes an incense stick to burn," Su Zhuoyang said after pondering for a moment. Clearly, the 4 of them had already discussed this earlier. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn will be sufficient. Xian Cheng nodded slightly, glanced at Bai Haojiao, and asked, "What do you think?" "Yes, I think so too." Bai Haojiao nodded and said, "If the time it takes for an incense stick to burn isn't enough, then let's push the water spirit diagram to the limit and break the 18 Arhat diagram. I'm afraid that no matter how much time we have, it will be useless." Fellow immortal Xiao. When he heard up to here, Su Zhuoyang turned around and asked Xiao Hua, "Can fellow immortal use that seal again now?" If fellow immortal can assist Senior Xian, that would be even better. Of course. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the seal of overturning the sea flew out of the space. It turned into a fist-sized seal and landed in his hand. Oh! Bai Hao Jiao's snake eyes lit up. He looked at the small seal and said curiously, "Is this a Taoist Dharma artifact? It seems like it can really restrain the water spirit diagram. If its power is enough, it can also be useful in breaking the formation." "Let's do it." Xian Cheng glanced at the seal of overturning the sea. He wasn't too surprised and waved his hand. Yes. Su Zhuoyang and the others didn't dare to be negligent. They all urged their origin power and were about to fly up. Xian Cheng shouted again, "Two little friends, if your mounts can do it, let them out. If you can help, then do it." "Yes, Junior understands." Chu Mu Huan and Master Qing Chun heard and waved their sleeves. The Rainbow Luan and the Cloud Crane flew out respectively. "Let's go." Master Qing Chun landed on the Rainbow Luan. He pointed his finger, and the cracking cauldron flew out. A crimson flame flew out from the cauldron and suddenly exploded in midair. It was like an exploding lantern, covering Master Qing Chun and the Rainbow Luan. Everyone felt the entire brilliance heat up abruptly. The Buddha's light on Wizard Qing Chun and the Phoenix's body flourished. This Buddha's light was like a fire that transformed into a ball of crimson fire. It charged out of the water avoidance pearl and burned a space of several feet in size in the seawater, flying towards the east side of the formation map. Master Qing Chen's flame was so hot that even though it had flown far away, the boiling hot breath could still penetrate the water's spiritual energy of the West Sea and rush to everyone's faces. "I'm going." Immediately after, the leopard Taoist let out a roar and opened his mouth. The magnificent mountain box flew out. As the leopard Taoist spat out a mouthful of demonic energy, the magnificent mountain box emitted a dazzling yellow light. A heavy aura came from the magnificent mountain box, and a strand of dust rose from this aura. As soon as this small cloud of dust appeared, it forced the light of the water avoidance pearl to sway. It expanded by more than 10 feet. Then, with the sway of the light, the cloud of dust turned into a whirlwind that was several feet in size. The Earth's spiritual energy in the whirlwind was rich. When Leopard's spiritual master saw this, his body turned into the wind and rushed into the whirlwind. With another roar, he rushed to the north of the formation. Just as Leopard's spiritual master left, Su Zhuoyang's body flashed with a silvery white brilliance. The true qi in his middle dantian immediately rushed out of his body. Su Zhuoyang looked like a burning silvery white golden flame. Clang! There was the sound of a sword ringing. Su Zhuoyang opened his mouth and the flying sword rushed out and fell into the true qi. The luster of the flying sword was golden. Boom! As the flying sword fell into the true qi was like the pitch-black rock layer under the twilight transformation technique. The entire true qi condensed, and in a moment, a flying sword that was several feet in size was born outside of Su Zhuoyang's body. The thin flame pattern was like the sword pattern of the flying sword. Go! Following Su Zhuoyang's sword-ringing sound, the golden flying sword rushed out of the light and fell on the west side of the formation. "It's this Chu's turn." Chu Mu Huan waved his hand, and the rattan staff produced a green light. As the green light flashed, the entire rattan staff turned into a sprout. This sprout rapidly grew and turned into a small tree. In the end, it became a towering tree that was several tens of feet in size. Chu Mu Huan opened his mouth again, and a mouthful of true qi rushed into the big tree. A rattan as thick as a child's arm grew on the thick tree trunk. The rattan coiled out and fell on Chu Mu Huan's waist. Chu Mu Huan's body flashed with a green brilliance and fell on the roots of the big tree along with the rattan. The cloud crane also let out a cry and spread its wings to lift Chu Mu Huan and the big tree, flying towards the south of the formation. Good! Xin Cheng was overjoyed and opened the formation in his hand. A stream of light came out of the formation and rushed towards the 4 people who had already stabilized themselves in the air. It was like a picture being shaken into the mortal world. 5 different colored balls of light came out of the formation and rotated under the feet of the 4 people. "We'll go too." Xin Sheng glanced at Bai Haojiao and said, "Although you and I have a grudge in the past, we can only work together today." Understood. Bai Haojiao's face was solemn and her entire body trembled violently. Countless amounts of water spirit qi rushed into her body from the sea, and a 3-meter-long python appeared again. Roar! Xianming also let out a loud cry. A blue brilliance blossomed from his body, and a black tortoise the same size as the python appeared. As soon as the true forms of the python and the black tortoise appeared, countless tiny whirlpools appeared between them. The water spiritual energy rushed into the whirlpools like a swarm of bees, condensing into countless needle-shaped crystals in an instant. Almost without any sound, the black tortoise and the python left the water avoidance pearl and floated to the center of the formation. It was the largest blue ball of light among the 5 balls of light. Fall, just as the black tortoise and the python approached the light, Xin Cheng's voice came out. Master Qing Chun and the other 4 balls of light fell into the formation. Shua, almost at the same time. The 5 balls of light were like 5 huge suns. They suddenly emitted a strong brilliance and rushed towards the 18 Arhat formation. Boom! The impact was like an earthquake. Xiaohua almost couldn't stand still in the air. The water avoidance pearl was shot far away in this impact. Fall! How could Xiaohua let the water avoidance pearl run away? Opening his heaven and earth sleeve, he forcefully trapped the water avoidance pearl above his head. Wong wong! A violent roar sounded. In the center of the 5 balls of light, a whirlpool shaped like a tornado rushed into the sky. The black tortoise and the python were on both sides of the whirlpool. Countless needle-shaped crystals were born in this whirlpool and pierced towards the 18 Arhat formation. Every time those crystals pierced the formation, the entire seabed would shake. However, after half an incense stick's time, the power of the whirlpool was already somewhat weakened. However, the formation only trembled and didn't show any signs of collapse. Not good. Xian Cheng's voice came. He said anxiously, "Little friend Xiao." Although Xian Chang didn't understand inscription armor, he called little friend Xiao very familiarly. Xiaohua understood as soon as he heard it. Urging the magic power in his body, the seal of ocean overturning seal immediately let out a roar. The little earth spiritual energy on the seabed swarmed in. The seal of ocean overturning seal immediately became half a mu in size. Go! Xiaohua's figure flew up and urged the secret technique. The coiling dragon on the seal smashed towards the center of the whirlpool. Rumble! An extremely strong vibration came from the center of the whirlpool. Clang! A bright light was born from the whirlpool. Huh! Xiaohua, who was in the air, saw this light and knew that the 18 Arhat formation was broken by his seal of ocean overturning seal. He couldn't help but stare blankly. He thought that although his seal of ocean overturning seal was powerful, looking at the previous situation, he would have to urge it a few more times to succeed. How could it be effective in one strike? Could it be that my magic power has greatly improved? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. -11. Chapter 31:30. Okay, watch me. Without waiting for Xiaohua to think, Bai Haojiao's voice sounded. Then, the vortex suddenly expanded, and the light inside the vortex shone brightly. After a while, the light stopped growing stronger and the vortex remained stable. Little friends, Xian Sheng shouted in surprise, let's quickly enter the treasury. This 5 elements evil punishing formation can last for 6 hours. Yes, everyone was overjoyed. Each of them jumped out of the light and landed beside the light with a joyous look on their faces. It was a hole a few feet in size. It was the water ripple under the feet of the river Arhat in the 18 Arhats formation. Around the hole, the Sanskrit characters that formed the water ripples churned violently, trying to gather towards the center to mend the hole. However, the blue water spiritual energy also spread out in all directions like a corrosive corrosion, negating the mend of the formation diagram. Looking at the other parts of the 5 elements evil punishing formation, it was the same as the water formation. At the same time, it emitted a strong elemental energy fluctuation to cover the Buddhist formation below, limiting the connection between them and weakening the power of the Sanskrit characters in the hole. The light emitted from the hole was a little red, and there was even a trace of heat. Moreover, the entire Buddhist formation blocked everyone's divine sense, Buddhist consciousness, and all kinds of eye-clearing techniques. No one could see the situation inside. Xiaohua landed beside the light and frowned. There was a trace of a fishy smell in this aura. It was the same as the aura he smelled when he was cultivating on Lava Island. Could it be that the West Sea relic is in the lava? Thinking of this, Xiaohua looked at Xian Cheng and Bai Haojiao. At this time, the two monsters had already transformed into human form. Their faces were pale, and there was a trace of blue in the whiteness. It was obvious that they had consumed a lot of energy just now. However, their weak faces couldn't hide their surprise and helplessness. They looked at each other, and Xian Cheng smiled bitterly. I didn't expect the West Sea relic to be in the lava. For our sea race, it's really difficult. Then, Xian Cheng looked at Master Qing Chen and smiled. Master, how about you go first? Okay, Master Qing Chen already had a plan in mind. Hearing Xian Cheng's order, he nodded without hesitation. Wait. Bai Haojiao hastily raised his hand and said, I'll go down with you, Venerable One. Anything is fine. Xian Cheng was somewhat impatient. He seemed to be in a bad mood. He waved his hand and said, Let's hurry down and talk about it later. Bai Haojiao opened his mouth, and a semicircular jade bracelet flew out. He also breathed out a mouthful of water spiritual energy, and the jade bracelet turned into a watery light that protected Bai Haojiao. When Xian Cheng saw this, he was stunned. He cried out in disbelief, West Dragon Ring. How can you have this item? However, just as Xian Cheng finished speaking, he slapped his forehead as if he had come to a realization, and said regretfully, Alas, yes, you should have it. He must have given it to you. How could I have forgotten about him? Old turtle shell? Bai Haojiao was clearly surprised when he saw such an intense reaction from Xian Cheng. A trace of understanding flashed across his snake eyes as he coldly said, Could it be that the half of the Western Dragon Ring that was long lost is in your hands? Who said so? Xian Cheng raised his eyebrows and said faintly, I only know that the Western Dragon Ring is one of the treasures that was lost in the treasury of the West Sea Dragon Palace. I didn't expect it to be damaged and fall into your hands. Since we have this item, we can go down even if it's a place of fire. The chance of getting the relic has increased by another 10%. Seeing that Xian Cheng did not admit it, Bai Haojiao had no choice. He looked at Master Qing Chen, who was flashing with Buddhist light and had tiny flames mixed in the Buddhist light. Bai Haojiao's snake tail produced water vapor, and he slowly landed in the hole of the Buddhist formation. Master Qing Chen did not dare to delay and flew down as well. Seeing the light above the hole, the water film of water spiritual energy did not obstruct them, and the two of them entered. Come in. After a moment, Bai Haojiao's somewhat disappointed voice was heard. Oh? Xian Cheng heard the meaning in Bai Haojiao's voice, and his heart thumped. He did not have time to greet Su Zhuoyang and the others, and immediately jumped into the light. Let's go. When Xian Cheng entered the Buddhist sect, Su Zhuoyang sighed. How could he not know that there was a problem again? He waved his hand, called Xiaohua, and jumped in as well. Xiaohua's eyes turned a few times, and he looked to his left. The water-blue brilliance above his head had become pitch black, and an incomparably strong pressure came from the darkness. Xiaohua understood that he was now at the bottom of the sea, and everything had to withstand the heavy pressure of the water. He did not have the water escape technique, and could only survive under the protection of the water avoidance technique. If he wanted to reach the surface, he had to rely on the water spiritual energy of Xian Cheng and Bai Haojiao, the two West Sea Patrol inspectors. He had no other choice. Let's go. It's lava on both sides. Others may be afraid, but I am not. Xiaohua thought for a moment and also jumped into the Buddhist formation. Chu Mu Huan and Leopard's spiritual master also entered. As soon as Xiaohua entered the Buddhist formation, an extremely hot aura hit him in the face. This extremely hot aura cut his face, wave after wave, as if it was endless. The dark golden brilliance protecting Xiaohua's body slowly flashed under the sharp heat waves. Xiaohua frowned slightly. He had no choice but to urge his true origin to replenish the consumption of the golden light, protecting his body from time to time. Clearly, This was a space that was hundreds of feet wide, and divine sense could not be used. Xiao Hua's eyes could only see craggy rocks, and it looked like an ordinary cave. However, the rocks were scarlet red, and within that scarlet color, there were specks of Buddhist light. This Buddhist light was like millions of fireflies, covering the entire space. Although hundreds of feet of space was large, Xiao Hua finished looking at it in a moment, and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Yes, the space was large enough, but there were no treasures. As for the passage leading to the depths, there was also nothing. How could it look like a lost treasure of the West Sea? Xin Cheng and the others were obviously stunned. After looking around like Xiao Hua, Xin Cheng said, "Young friend Su, that Mo Yuntong seems to only say that there is a Buddhist sect, and you need to use the 4 symbols or 5 elements formation to break the formation, right?" "Yes, Senior Xian." Su Zhuoyang nodded. It also explained in detail how to break the 4 symbols or 5 elements formation, but this detail is also a general idea, and it needs to be carried out according to the specific formation diagrams. It didn't even mention the name of the Buddhist formation. As for the inside of the Buddhist formation, it didn't mention a single word. I thought that the lost treasure was inside the Buddhist formation. As he spoke, Su Zhuoyang reached out to take out Mo Yuntong. "Forget it, there's no need to take it out." Xin Cheng waved his hand and said, "This old man has seen that thing countless times." Every single word and sentence in the book was clear. Yes, Su Zhuoyang heard and his hand stopped. Xin Cheng was right. He had seen Mo Yuntong many times, and there was no need to look at it again. How is that possible? Bai Haojiao mocked. If the lost treasure is inside the Buddhist formation, then the cultivator who came here earlier, the one who left Mo Yuntong behind, has already entered the treasury? Didn't he take away the lost treasure long ago? Why did he leave Mo Yuntong behind? This old man thought. Xin Cheng said, "The person who recorded Mo Yuntong was the same as when I came here for the first time. He only used the thunder condensing bead to break the restriction formation outside the Buddhist formation. When he encountered the 18 Arhat formation, he was helpless. He could only study it for a long time, record the situation in Mo Yuntong, and leave helplessly. Therefore, my previous discussion with you was about how to break the formation. Of course, all of this was an assumption made under the circumstances that Bai Haojiao and Xiao Hua hadn't come. I never expected that the two of you would actually show up, especially Bai Haojiao. If you work together with me, all of our troubles will vanish into nothingness. All of our plans will be useless. But this old man, I didn't expect that there was still another world inside. Since we're here, we still need to work hard." Su Zhuoyang thought for a moment and said, "Since we can break the 18 Arhat formation, it's not impossible for us to go further. This is a Buddhist formation." Speaking of this, Su Zhuoyang's eyes suddenly lit up. He seemed to have thought of something and cried, "By the way, I remember that Mo Yuntong mentioned looking for a person from the Buddhist sect." "Yes, that's right." Xian Cheng also smiled. Because the people from the Buddhist sect have Buddhist awareness, they can distinguish the Buddhist formation. This old man thought that Master Qing Chun could play a role in breaking the formation, but I didn't expect that you could still play a vital role here. Master Qing Chun, Leopard Immortal couldn't help but cry. "Can you still use your Buddhist awareness?" Master Qing Chun said curiously, "Of course. Is it possible that—" "Haha, yes, my elemental spirit skill is useless," Xin Cheng said with a smile. "What about Su and Chu? Junior's divine awareness skill and mind-clearing skill are useless." Su Zhuoyang and Chu Muhuan said in unison. "Well, Master Qing Chun, please release your Buddhist awareness and take a closer look." Bai Haojiao hurriedly nodded and said, "Is there anything strange in this cave?" "Yes, this poor nun understands." A strange look appeared on Master Qing Chen's face. He released his Buddhist awareness and explored the space inch by inch. This space was also strange. It seemed to be able to perceive Master Qing Chen's Buddhist awareness. Wherever the Buddhist awareness passed, there would be a faint Buddhist light flickering, and Sanskrit characters flowed in the Buddhist light. Strange. Xiao Hua looked at the Sanskrit characters that were somewhat similar to the golden rune in the Buddhist light and was really puzzled. Normally, the Buddhist formation should be filled with golden rune. It's just like. But when he thought of this, he laughed inwardly. damn it. The runes of my Taoist sect are actually not ordinary runes. The runes in the Soul Formation are not all Green Seal script, and the runes used in the 1,000,000 Ming Mountains are only similar to the Green Seal script. So, how is it possible that the Buddhist sect is using the golden inscription? It must have taken hundreds of millions of years to evolve into Sanskrit and use it as the foundation of the Buddhist formation. This Sanskrit should have the same function as Buddhist seals or runes, right? -11. Chapter 31:31. Just as Xiao Hua was pondering, Wizard Qing Qin's Buddhist consciousness had already scanned the rock wall for about 10 feet. There was nothing out of the ordinary. However, seeing that the Buddhist consciousness was useful, everyone's eyes were filled with hope, hoping that a miracle would happen. After all, they were not willing to give up any glimmer of hope at this point. Sure enough, after a meal, Wizard Qing Qin's Buddhist consciousness had scanned 70% of the cave. Suddenly, there was a loud buzz, and a Buddhist light appeared on the rock wall. Then, the light shone brightly, and a new rock wall rushed out from the Buddhist light. It expanded rapidly and stood in front of everyone's eyes in the blink of an eye. A world in a flower, a Bodhi in a leaf. Xian Chang could not help but groan. The Buddhist sect Sumeru technique is really amazing. I'm really speechless. Just as Xian Chang was about to praise, Wizard Qing Qin held his head with both hands and screamed in pain. He fell from the air. Wizard! Su Zhuoyang was stunned. He did not dare to delay and hurriedly flew up to Wizard Qing Qin's side. He reached out his hand to grab Wizard Qing Qin's arm. However, just as he was about to touch it, he felt that it was inappropriate. Just as he was hesitating whether to withdraw his hand, he saw a blue brilliance appear. This brilliance firmly supported Wizard Qing Qin. Su Zhuoyang looked in the direction of the brilliance. It was the brilliance emitted by the West Dragon Ring that Bai Haojiao was protecting. This brilliance was very strange. It was like a blue transparent futon supporting Wizard Qing Qin's body in the air. This blue brilliance reflected on Wizard Qing Qin's body and looked a little strange. Thank you, Senior. Su Zhuoyang hurriedly thanked him. Bai Haojiao ignored him and looked at the rock wall that had appeared. Wizard. Su Zhuoyang looked at Wizard Qing Qin with concern. Is there anything wrong? If not, you can take a rest first. Sigh, I'm fine. This is another Buddhist formation, right? Wizard Qing Qin struggled to get up from the transparent futon. A painful expression appeared on his face. My Buddhist consciousness has been completely absorbed by this Buddhist sect. Now, I have a splitting headache. I haven't found anything else wrong for now. Well, thank you for your hard work, Wizard. When Su Zhuoyang heard that it was only the exhaustion of his Buddhist awareness, he knew that it was not a big deal. He felt relieved and said with a smile. At the same time, he looked at the stone wall with the same gaze as Master Qing Qin. The stone wall was over 100 feet tall, and the entire stone wall was like a crimson-colored glass. This crimson color was extremely alluring, and it looked as if it could completely suck in one's gaze. Furthermore, this glass was filled with flames. However, the strange thing was that the patterns and threads of the flames seemed to have solidified. Everyone could see them clearly with their naked eyes. What was special was that the flames in the glass didn't seem to have any heat. There was no feeling of rushing towards them. However, as everyone's gazes wandered, the crimson light flashed with a wrinkled luster. It was like a burning flame, but also like a blooming brilliance. When everyone looked at the flame and sized it up, they couldn't help but groan in unison. This transparent glass was even more magical. It was in the shape of a golden crow. When it had first appeared, no one had noticed it. Now that the flames had appeared, the golden crow had revealed itself. Golden crow, immortal slaying demon formation? Next to Xiao Hua, Leopard Master almost shouted out in disbelief. How? How is this possible? Xian Cheng was dumbfounded. Bai Haojiao was dumbfounded. Su Zhuoyang was even more dumbfounded. The flames of greed in everyone's eyes were instantly extinguished. Instead, it was replaced by an expression of disbelief and despair. Outside the West Sea Relic, there was an 18 Arhat formation that had already made them go through a lot of trouble. Not only did they use the 5 elements evil-slaying demon formation of the West Sea Dragon Palace, but they also used everyone's strength to barely break a flaw. Only then did they have a chance of 6 hours. No one would have thought that there was a demon clan's formation inside the 18 Arhut formation, not to mention that they were not prepared at all. Even if they were prepared with their cultivation, it was impossible to break this so-called Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation. Leopard Master, are you sure that this is your demon clan's formation? Xiancheng still couldn't believe it. He still had a trace of unwillingness to give up and asked in a low voice. This one does not dare to confirm. Leopard Master unexpectedly shook his head. This one has never seen the Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation before. I have only heard of it from others. Furthermore, this formation does not have the slightest bit of my demon clan's aura. It is completely unlike a demon formation. Although Senior Xian is from the Sea Clan, he should not have sensed this aura, right? And Xiancheng did not comment. If he knew, would he still need to ask Leopard Master? However, the Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation is a fire spirit formation. It can only be set up in this kind of hot aura. Furthermore, the shape of the Golden Crow, the flames and fire patterns in the Golden Crow's body are all the same as the Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation. Leopard Master finally said, therefore, this one's intuition tells this one that this is my 1,000 Demon Sacred Realms Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation. Intuition? Sigh, I'm afraid so. By Hao Jiao's side, the West Sea relic was left behind by the annihilation of Taoists. There must be Buddhist and Confucian formations. It is not strange for the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realms formation to appear here. If there was only the 18 Arhut formation outside, this one would be suspicious. Anyone who obtained the 4 symbols catalog or the 5 elements formation diagram could enter. Then wouldn't the West Sea relic have already been taken away? Furthermore, this one does not doubt that behind this demon formation, there must be Confucian origin formation. At this point, a look of extreme regret appeared on her face. Our efforts this time have been in vain. That might not be the case. Xiancheng smiled and said, we have finally broken through the 18 Arhut formation and witnessed the Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation. After we return, we will make plans that, at this moment, a string of words that they did not understand rang in everyone's ears. What? Fellow immortal Xiao. When this voice entered his ears, Su Zhuoyang almost jumped up. You said, you can try to break this formation? However, this is not some great heavenly cycle star formation. Are you really confident? Not only was Su Zhuoyang ecstatic, his voice was also trembling. This feeling of coming back from death's door was really wonderful. Yes, this one seems to have seen this formation before. Xiao Hua said with a smile, if this one is given some time, although I don't dare to say that I can break this formation, I still have some confidence in making it reveal a flaw for us to enter. Yes, when he saw this Golden Crow, Xiao Hua had a very familiar feeling. Isn't this the Golden Crow talisman? It was one of the innate divine restrictions that Xiao Hua gradually recalled after his Naiwan Palace's seal was broken. Since the rabbit talisman was either the great heavenly cycle star formation or the capital star formation, this Golden Crow talisman being some Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation was not considered strange. However, Xiao Hua did not comprehend much about the Golden Crow talisman and still could not control it as he wished. However, if it was as Xiao Hua said, it would not be difficult to find a flaw to enter. After all, Xiao Hua's divine sense could not be used. However, when he saw the flames inside the Golden Crow's body, he already had a trace of understanding. This Golden Crow immortal-slaying demon formation was probably not complete. Otherwise, it would be impossible to see any flames when the entire formation was made of Golden Crows. Hearing Su Zhuoyang's explanation, everyone's hearts were once again rekindled with hope. They all looked at Xiao Hua with bright eyes. Fellow immortal Xiao, how much time do you need to break the formation? Su Zhuoyang said happily. More than 6 hours? I don't think so. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, give me an hour first. Good. Su Zhuoyang clapped and said, I will wait for fellow immortal Zhao's good news. Immediately, several people gathered at the side. seemingly discussing and waiting. Xiao Hua looked around the Golden Crow's stone wall for a long time, then sat cross-legged at the side and actually closed his eyes to meditate. Su Zhuoyang and the others watched anxiously, but they knew that Xiao Hua was thinking about how to break the formation, so they did not dare to disturb him. Sure enough, after an hour, Xiao Hua opened his eyes, stood up and said with a smile, "Fellow immortal Su, this Xiao is ready to break the formation." Good. Seeing that Xiao Hua had a card up his sleeve, Su Zhuoyang was really incomparably happy. He really did not expect that Xiao Hua, this Taoist loose cultivator he casually picked up on Lava Island, would actually be able to break the formation at the crucial moment. His divination was indeed correct. Xiao Hua flew in front of the Golden Crow, waved his hand and took out a dozen jade talismans that he hurriedly refined from the space. His eyes slightly narrowed as he looked at the Golden Crow for a moment, then activated his magic power. With a whoosh, a jade talisman rushed into the Golden Crow's abdomen. Wong? A low rumbling sound was heard, and a ripple-like flame emerged from that place. This flame rapidly spread until it affected the entire Golden Crow, then it slowly stopped. Xiao Hua's jade talisman actually entered the Golden Crow immortal slaying demon formation. Good. Su Zhuoyang clapped and said with a smile, "Fellow immortal Zhao's godly skill is like this. This formation should be broken." Hee. Xin Cheng, who was at the side, also laughed. Since this strange jade talisman could be sent into the demon array, then the other jade talismans could naturally be sent in as well. They could also create an array within this demon array. It was the same logic as the 5 elements evil punishing array breaking the 18 Arhat array. This Xiao Hua is a little strange. Bai Hao Jiao said with a frown, he clearly has a strange Taoist technique in his hands. Why didn't he take it out earlier? Why did he have to ponder over it for so long? Senior, there's something you don't know. Su Zhuoyang said with a smile, fellow immortal Xiao is proficient in Taoist formations. I'm afraid that he doesn't understand the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realms formations. Even if he has some tricks, he should still think twice before acting, right? He won't do something, right? Bai Hao Jiao was still worried. Master Qing Chun said with a smile, although this humble nun is not very familiar with Xiao Tanyu, he is honest and noble. Furthermore, he has something to ask of this humble nun, so there's no harm. Oh, Bai Hao Jiao was non-committal when he heard that. The aqua-blue brilliance around him moved slightly, and the half of the West Dragon ring appeared at his waist. On the other side, Xiao Hua was very cautious as he placed the remaining jade talismans in various parts of the Golden Crow immortal slaying demon formation. Although he would ignite some flames every time, these flames would disappear without exception. All right, fellow immortal Su, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand with a smile and said, I'm going to break the formation. Everyone, be careful. Got it. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, everyone's body glowed brightly. Their expressions turned serious as they prepared to welcome any abnormalities that might occur. However, when Xiao Hua's magic power surged and he made a hand seal and grabbed, there were no flames as Xiao Hua had imagined. In fact, there was no movement at all. Oh, that's strange. Xiao Hua was stunned. He looked at the motionless Golden Crow with some confusion, then turned back to look at Su Zhuoyang and the others in the distance. The magic power in his body surged again, and he prepared to use 50% of his quintessential essence to give it a try. Quick! Mo Yuntong! Bai Hao Jiao shouted almost without hesitation. There must be something in there that you haven't discovered yet. Bai Hao Jiao had never seen Mo Yuntong before, so he naturally didn't know the content inside. Seeing this situation, he naturally thought of this item. Although he had seen Mo Yuntong countless times, Su Zhuoyang naturally flipped his hand and took the Mo Yuntong that Xin Cheng gave him in his hand again. This is... Xiao Hua's gaze swept past the Mo Yuntong in Su Zhuoyang's hand. A familiar feeling arose, and he almost groaned. Isn't this the thing I got near the lava island? Suddenly, a kind of warning arose in his heart. The hand that he stretched out again stopped, and the magic power that he was about to send out also stopped. -11. Chapter 31-32. Just as Xiao Hua withdrew his magic power, a sudden change occurred. An extremely strong suction force came from the Golden Crow immortal slaying demon formation. The true essence in Xiao Hua's meridians involuntarily rushed out of his meridians and into the Golden Crow. Moreover, Xiao Hua's body was also pulled to the Golden Crow by this suction force, unable to move at all. He was paralyzed on top of it like a dead person. Not good. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly struggled and shouted, "This Golden Crow immortal slaying demon formation has changed. Fellow immortals, quickly leave." As he spoke, Xiao Hua roared again, "Chong." A ball of golden light appeared around Xiao Hua's body. Countless scorching fire spiritual energy rushed into Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Xiao Hua's dragon transformation art was activated again. Xiao Hua wanted to use the dragon transformation art to cut off this suction force and use the heavenly law embodiment technique to forcefully pull his body away from the Golden Crow. Unfortunately, just as Xiao Hua's heavenly law embodiment technique was activated, wong wong wong, a series of rumbling sounds came from the crimson walls of the entire space. Billions of Buddhist lights lit up like a fire seed, igniting the entire space. Countless merciless crimson flames rushed out from the stone walls and madly burned everyone. Covering the sky and covering the earth, there was nowhere to hide. What was special was that when the entire space turned into flames, the entire Golden Crow immortal slaying demon formation also suddenly moved. An intense vibration, a kind of heaven-destroying and earth-extinguishing heat, suddenly rushed out from the Golden Crow demon formation. This change was really too sudden. Just as Xiao Hua's voice came out, all of the flames were affected. Xian Cheng and the others simply did not have time to escape and were surrounded by all of the flames. "Come out." Xian Cheng opened his mouth almost without thinking, and a jade bangle that was similar to a semicircle flew out. The moment the jade bangle came out, it immediately turned into a watery brilliance that protected Xian Cheng's entire body. What was even more amazing was that this brilliance was like a waterfall coming out from Xian Cheng's body. It connected with the brilliance of Bai Haojiao's West Dragon Ring and formed an oval watery brilliance. Old Turtle Shell. Seeing this, Bai Haojiao's eyes were filled with shock and ecstasy. "So that half of the West Dragon Ring is in your hands." "Humph." Xian Cheng snorted coldly, but before he could say another word, humph, an even more oppressive and cold snort came from the Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic formation at the same time. Then, a seemingly corporeal divine sense swept over. This divine sense was extremely cold, and Xian Cheng and the others all felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts the moment they came into contact with it. However, the divine sense completely ignored them. After a slight sweep, it landed on Xiao Hua, who was struggling with all his might. At this moment, Xiao Hua's Dharma idol had just emerged from the golden light. "In the three great continents, there are still successors of my Tao sect? How strange." A voice that sounded like an owl's came out of nowhere. "Caw." Just as this chilling sound landed, the Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic formation suddenly moved. It actually opened its mouth and cried out as if it was real. A pure-colored thread of fire rushed out from the Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic formation, accompanied by an aura that could destroy heaven and earth, pounced towards Xian Cheng and the others. Xian Cheng and Bai Haojiao were protected by the West Dragon Ring's watery light, but Su Zhuoyang and the others were not. Just as Xian Cheng released the West Dragon Ring, Su Zhuoyang, Venerable Qing Chun, Chu Muhuan, and Leopard spiritual masters' bodies flashed with brilliance as they resisted the flames from the four walls. At the same time, they tried their best to fly towards the watery light. Unfortunately, everything happened too quickly. In the blink of an eye, the destructive thread of fire had already rushed in front of everyone. "Fight!" Su Zhuoyang's eyes flashed with horror and despair, but he still roared loudly. Sword light flashed around his body, and he wanted to join forces with the four of them to deal with the situation as they had discussed previously on Lava Island. Just as Su Zhuoyang's golden sword light, Venerable Qing Chen's Buddhist light, Chu Muhuan's green light, and Leopard spiritual master's demonic aura were activated, the thread of fire rushed over like a storm. Whoosh! It was swifter than a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves. All the sword light, Buddhist light, green light, and demonic aura were annihilated. The physical bodies of the four of them melted instantly, leaving only a large portion of their skeletons scattered in the fire, and rushed out of the space with the fire. The most eye-catching thing was that the pitch-black inky cloud eyes were still swaying in the fire. They also floated out of the space with the corpses and fell into the West Sea once again. Ha ha! With a loud laugh, for blood shadows emerged from where Su Zhuoyang and the others had fallen. Like moths to a flame, they rushed into the Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic formation. A burst of hearty laughter sounded again. Little doll, don't struggle. You saved me today, so I won't take your life. Boom! With a muffled sound, the Dharma that Xiao Hua had just condensed collapsed. The vital core in Xiao Hua's body was completely absorbed at this moment, and not a single drop was left. It was just as the voice had said. A stream of innate true water rushed out from the clear water bottle and tightly protected Xiao Hua. Then, Xiao Hua took out a few spirit pills and sent them into the air. When a trace of true qi was produced, Xiao Hua immediately used the wind escape technique to rush toward the hole in the Buddhist formation that was about to close. -11. He hurriedly opened his mouth, activated his remaining magic power, and spat out the spiritual fire. Hiss! The same crimson spiritual fire appeared, and the flame that was about to enter the magic bottle suddenly stopped. Shortly after, it turned around and rushed into the spiritual fire. Good! The two flames collided with each other, making a sizzling sound. They twisted together. Xiao Hua was happy in his heart. He praised and immediately activated the divine fire art to control the spiritual fire. It was like a fine net that wrapped around the fire thread. The crimson flame seemed to have intelligence. It rushed left and right, wanting to rush out of the spiritual fire. However, after several attempts, it was not effective. It could not help but obediently stop there. Collect. Seeing this, he knew that in the future, if he slowly used the spiritual fire to wear down the fire thread, he would definitely be able to merge it into the spiritual fire. His spiritual fire would definitely make great progress, and he could not help but feel happy. However, he did not dare to collect the fire thread into his body. Instead, he activated the divine fire art and collected it into a corner of the space. When Xiao Hua used the magic bottle to collect the innate true fire, the broken scroll swayed a few times in the space and flew back to the eye of the sea. It seemed to only want to see the 18 Arhat formation in good condition and did not pay any attention to Xiao Hua in the space. There was an extremely large amount of innate true fire in the space. Although Xiao Hua's magic bottle had many ordinary items, it was far from being as powerful as a water bottle. After collecting only 40% of it, it could not contain it anymore. Moreover, at the same time Xiao Hua moved, the Buddhist light on the four walls of the space flickered and also collected the innate true fire into the crimson walls. After waiting for half a meal's time, the flames in the entire space completely disappeared. On the ground, there were hundreds of fire-colored crystals of different sizes. The only thing left was the pitch-black eye of the sea in front of Xiao Hua. These fire-colored crystals were naturally condensed by the Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic formation. Xiao Hua released his consciousness and collected them as well. These things were not inferior to the fire essence flame crystals that he had previously obtained. They were also excellent materials for Xiao Hua's cultivation in the future. Xiao Hua was already happy when he obtained the innate true fire. After collecting the crimson fire thread, Xiao Hua was even more ecstatic. After collecting the fire essence flame crystals that were comparable to the fire essence flame crystals, Xiao Hua was so happy that he almost jumped up. Moreover, the door to his home was right in front of him. He really could not help but feel excited. In order to prevent the things on his body from being destroyed by the five elements annihilation great formation, Xiao Hua stored everything into the space. Then, he took a deep breath and rushed into the pitch-black eye of the sea that was condensed with an endless aura of death. However, just as Xiao Hua rushed into the eye of the sea, before he could release his divine sense to see the situation in the eye of the sea, a faint Buddhist light appeared in front of him. That broken scroll actually blocked in front of Xiao Hua. Although the Buddhist light was extremely faint, it was also extremely tough. Not only did it block Xiao Hua, even his divine sense could not penetrate it. Oomph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted and released the Buddha Sarira that was protected by the innate divine restriction from his Niwen palace. Even the exquisite derivation pagoda was carried out by the Buddha Sarira. When the Buddha Sarira came out, it also emitted a faint Buddhist light. The two Buddhist lights merged together as if they were of the same origin. They were actually indistinguishable. Looking at the broken scroll again, it actually surrendered without a fight and obediently fell into the hands of the Buddha Sarira, slowly rolling it up. Xiao Hua looked at all of this in disbelief. He felt that it was extremely unimaginable. However, when the scroll touched the Buddha Sarira's hands, countless golden swan characters were born like butterflies and swarmed into the swan character mark between the Buddha Sarira's eyebrows. A kind of enlightenment appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. Xiao Hua almost groaned as he muttered to himself, Mavarakana Buddha's decree. This Buddha's decree seems to be used to suppress. Before Xiao Hua's voice fell roar, after the Buddhist light of the Mavarakana Buddha's decree, an incomparably angry dragon roar rushed out. A palm-sized scarlet-red dragon soul flashed with flames that could melt the void and rushed towards Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira at an incomparable speed. It seemed that it was its unparalleled enemy. Damn it! Xiao Hua was greatly anxious and was somewhat flustered. He wanted to throw away the Mavarakana Buddha's decree in the Buddha Sarira's hands, but it was already too late. The Buddhist light disappeared along with the Buddha's decree. In the entire eye of the sea, there was only the Buddhist light of Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira. Even if the Buddha's decree was thrown away, the dragon soul that was suppressed by the Buddha's decree would still rush towards Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira. Return, Xiao Hua did not say anything and immediately put the Buddha Sarira into his Niwen palace. In an instant, the Buddhist light in the eye of the sea completely disappeared. Even a trace of Buddhist aura could not be seen. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's wishful thinking was wrong. That dragon soul was simply unreasonable. It flew straight at Xiao Hua. You are too reasonable. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and used heaven and earth sleeve. Boom! Almost like a clay chicken or pottery dog, Xiao Hua's heaven and earth sleeve was immediately defeated the moment it touched the dragon soul. Damn it! Xiao Hua immediately understood. Since the dragon soul was inside the eye of the sea and was suppressed by the Mavarakana Buddha's decree, the person in the black and white chi did not dare to take it. Naturally, he was powerless to take it. How could he afford to provoke something that even others did not dare to provoke? Big brother? Xiao Hua was almost about to cry. Little brother. Little brother seems to be a dragon vein too. Little brother just wants to go home. We originally came from the same root. Why are you so anxious to kill each other? Unfortunately, how could that dragon soul understand? Xiao Hua's mournful image had just appeared when his body was immediately controlled by a power that he could not resist. Everything in his body was completely unable to move. That dragon soul streaked across the pitch-black space of the eye of the sea and directly rushed into Xiao Hua's body. Not only that, at the same time that the dragon soul rushed into Xiao Hua's body, an endless hurricane was born behind the dragon soul. That hurricane was like a spinning sickle that scraped Xiao Hua's skin and rushed into the space behind Xiao Hua. Woo! Like a ghost's howl, the 18 Arhat formation flickered with a faint Buddhist light in this hurricane, trying to block it with all its might. Unfortunately, that Buddhist light gradually melted under the hurricane's sharp blades. In the time it took to eat a meal, the entire formation was broken through by the hurricane as if it was made of paper. The several acres of reefs were blown into the sky by the hurricane like gravel. The area that previously seemed to have no swimming fish or seaweed was now completely a huge abyss. The hurricane rushed out for no less than several hours, then suddenly changed direction and rushed into the eye of the sea with endless seawater. Huff! At the instant that the dragon soul entered his body, Xiao Hua felt a kind of blazing heat that he had never experienced before. Even when the origin of fire entered his body, it was not as fierce as this. His body was in pain as if it was about to melt. Actually, it was exactly what Xiao Hua felt. Whether it was his hair or his Taoist robe, everything had already turned into nothingness. Only Xiao Hua's phoenix body was still unyieldingly struggling. -11. Chapter 31-34. Xiao Hua felt dizzy and nauseous. The place that the dragon's soul went to was not a place, but Xiao Hua's soul, where the mysterious dark clouds were. Little White, come out. Xiao Hua did not dare to let the dragon's soul enter his soul. He quickly summoned Little White Dragon's soul. Actually, there was no need for Xiao Hua to summon it. As soon as the dragon's soul entered its body, Little White Dragon had already sensed the danger. It let out a loud roar and rushed out of its body. Without waiting for the dragon's soul to crash into the mysterious dark clouds, its endless soul strands blocked the dragon's soul like the waves of the West Sea. The dragon's soul also roared. It was not afraid of Little White Dragon's soul at all. It bravely rushed into the soul strands. In an instant, thousands of soul strands were broken. Next to Little White Dragon's soul, Xiao Hua's green primordial spirit suddenly appeared. With a point of his hand, countless soul strands again wrapped around the dragon's soul. The dragon's soul twisted slightly and also broke the soul strands. It did not seem to use much strength. Put it into the space. Xiao Hua suddenly heard the green primordial spirit's voice. Thus, Xiao Hua immediately released his mind, wanting to cover the dragon's soul. Unfortunately, the dragon's soul was many times heavier than Little White Dragon. Xiao Hua's mind could not capture it at all. What do I do? Xiao Hua was anxious. At this moment, his body was firmly suppressed by the dragon's soul. That soaring hurricane could not blow him away. At this moment, the meridians that were suppressed by an inexplicable power also roared, and the dragon transformation art was activated. Go! Xiao Hua immediately retracted his mind. The green primordial spirit controlled Little White Dragon's soul and waved the soul strands. It fought and retreated with the dragon's soul and approached Xiao Hua's meridians. The dragon's soul seemed to be angry. It roared and broke the soul strands while biting Little White Dragon's soul. Even Xiao Hua's primordial spirit was torn apart by the dragon's soul. Who knows how long the chaotic battle lasted? Only when Little White Dragon's soul was very thin and Xiao Hua's green primordial spirit was also heavily injured did the dragon's soul enter his meridians. The moment the dragon's soul entered his meridians, Xiao Hua's meridians trembled inexplicably. The primordial spirit that Xiao Hua had never noticed immediately flew out from his meridians. This primordial spirit looked very strange, as though it was a thin and long thread. This thread ran through his essence soul from head to toe. What was even stranger was that some parts of this thin line were clear, while others were blurry. There were even some parts that couldn't be seen at all. However, when the thin and long threads were put together, they formed the vague shape of a dragon. This dragon figure had a head and horns, and there were scales all over its body. When the scales flashed, there was a golden light flowing out. This dragon figure was also in the form of a human, and it was faintly discernible. However, when this primordial spirit appeared, it immediately rushed to the dragon's soul and fiercely bit it. Without waiting for the dragon's soul to react, it immediately hid back into his meridians. Moreover, the dragon transformation art quickly circulated again. However, this time, what was refined in his meridians wasn't the ordinary spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but this crimson-red dragon soul. The dragon soul seemed to understand the danger it was in. It roared and wanted to rush out of his meridians. That crimson-red flame violently burned Xiao Hua's meridians. Unfortunately, how could the meridians that had been refined by the fire origin be so easy to tear? It was already not bad that the crimson-red dragon soul could tear apart a part of his meridians. At the same time when the dragon soul tore apart his meridians, the dragon soul, under the urging of the dragon transformation art, involuntarily flowed in his meridians, just like the true chi that had been refined in his meridians before. Every inch that passed, the dragon soul would be melted by a bit. This melted bit was then swallowed by the primordial spirit in Xiao Hua's meridians. At this time, the dragon transformation art had already escaped from Xiao Hua's control. Under the urging of the primordial spirit in Xiao Hua's meridians, the dragon soul rushed into Xiao Hua's already open meridians, and then rushed into his unopened meridians. Not only did it pass through his lower dantian, it even rushed into his middle dantian. In his middle dantian, the dragon soul stayed even longer, and with the appearance of these meridians, the line between Xiao Hua's meridians and primordial spirit became even more obvious. However, after 360 cycles, the dragon soul was already abnormally thin. At the end of the last cycle, the dragon soul fell into his middle dantian. Xiao Hua's two primordial spirits and the little white dragon soul rushed in at the same time, as if they were besieging the dragon soul. Boom! A crack appeared on the dragon soul. Under the besiegement of the two primordial spirits and the little white dragon soul, the dragon soul actually shattered. Roar! The little white dragon soul roared in ecstasy and rushed in front of the dragon soul. Xiao Hua's two primordial spirits tactfully moved to the side. When the little white dragon opened its mouth, the head of the dragon soul entered. As the dragon soul was swallowed by the little white dragon, the power that was suppressing Xiao Hua immediately disappeared. Xiao Hua's body involuntarily moved along with the hurricane in the eye of the sea. However, at this time, the hurricane had already changed direction and was blowing towards the depths of the eye of the sea. But in this eye of the sea, there were so many spatial cracks and the space was so small. How could Xiao Hua avoid them? I can only escape from the eye of the sea. This was the only way for Xiao Hua to survive. However, he also knew that this was nothing more than wishful thinking. If ordinary escape techniques could pass through this eye of the sea, then wouldn't the suppressed cultivator have already escaped? -11. Chapter 31-35. Just as Xiao Hua had expected, the wall of the Eye of the Sea was extremely strange. Xiao Hua activated his limited magic power, but he couldn't use any of the metal, wood, fire, or earth escape techniques. I'm going to die. Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel sorrowful when he saw the spiderweb-like spatial cracks closing in on him. The road home is really full of thorns. I wonder if I can enter the space and accompany Xue Xue after I die? The crisis did not stop there. Within Xiao Hua's meridians, after the earth origin was revealed, it was still somewhat different from the fire origin from before. Near the earth origin, layers of thick earth attribute world spirit energy were rapidly produced, and very soon, Xiao Hua's meridians were completely blocked. Moreover, when this spiritual energy spread along his meridians, it passed through them and spread to other places. Wherever the earth attribute heaven and earth spiritual energy came in contact with it, it gave rise to a feeling of blockage. Damn it! Xiao Hua was once again sorrowful. Even if there were no spatial cracks, I would still turn into a stone statue, right? Oh, right. At this critical moment, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of the situation when he collected the fire origin. Looking at the incoming spatial cracks that were almost unavoidable, Xiao Hua couldn't help but twist his body. It was a move of the Big Dipper God Fist. This move was Xiao Hua's instinct. Even though Xiao Hua's body was very difficult to control in this spiraling sea current, he still cleverly avoided the spatial cracks. The strangest thing was that when the Big Dipper God Fist was used, the earth origin was the same as the fire origin. It also stopped. The earth attribute heaven and earth spiritual energy that blocked his meridians and body no longer increased. Wonderful! Xiao Hua saw that the Big Dipper God Fist was effective, and his desire to live was immediately born. Without thinking about anything else, he opened his Dharma eyes and carefully looked at the spatial cracks coming one after another. Then, he used the Big Dipper God Fist one move after another. Following the use of the Big Dipper God Fist, the earth origin moved again and rushed into Xiao Hua's bones at an extremely fast speed. Hiss! The pain of having his bones fused together and being separated from Xiao Hua's body appeared again. Along with the movement of the earth origin, it attacked Xiao Hua bit by bit. Just like before, the pain caused Xiao Hua's limbs to go numb and his entire body to tremble. At this moment, aside from the countless spider webs in his eyes, Xiao Hua's entire heart was filled with a solemn yellow color. The dust that was as heavy as a mountain seemed to cover his heart and body. His arm, which originally had the strength of 10,000 caddies, was now about to solidify. However, Xiaohua also understood that he absolutely couldn't delay in the slightest. Not to mention that the Earth quintessence could take his life. Even the spatial rift was like a sharp sword that hung above his head. He persisted like this for an unknown amount of time. He didn't know how many spatial rifts he had broken through, and he didn't know how many times he had used the Big Dipper Divine Fist. The origin of Earth continued to flow in Xiaohua's bones. With every inch it passed, Xiaohua's bones, which had already returned to their original gray color, would once again turn orange. This orange color was extremely bright and very uniform. In the end, all of Xiaohua's bones had already turned completely orange. This orange color was very gorgeous and revealed an incomparable heaviness. Woo! A strange sound that resounded through the world came from the sea eye. At this moment, Xiaohua's Dharma eye was already extremely tired and could no longer open. However, before closing it, Xiaohua took one last look. In front of him was no longer an endless gray spider web, but billions of tiny gray dots. Every gray dot was the size of a thumb, and every gray was in the shape of a rotating vortex. Xiaohua stopped using the Big Dipper Divine Fist. He was astonished in his heart. What is this? Just as this astonishment appeared in his heart, a kind of uncontrollable fear arose in his heart. He couldn't help but look towards the depths of these billions of gray dots. Gradually, at a certain place, that gray dot was completely black. This pitch black dot was wriggling like millions of maggots. It was extremely strange. However, before Xiaohua could take a closer look, countless attacks that were 10 times more tyrannical than Xiaohua's soul stab rushed towards him like a violent storm. A rumbling sound came from Xiaohua's Naiwen Palace. Xiaohua screamed and immediately fainted. The innate divine restrictions outside his Naiwen Palace emitted a faint golden light. The 360 innate divine restrictions slowly rotated. Those attacks that were similar to Soul Stab, but were countless times more powerful than Soul Stab, were like a torrential downpour hitting a hard rock. However, they couldn't cause any damage to the rock. This kind of situation only happened to Xiaohua. If it was any other cultivator, even if they had reached the tribulation passing stage, if they didn't have a special spiritual treasure or even a heaven spiritual treasure, it would be difficult for them to escape death. However, even if it was Xiaohua who had escaped this calamity, his Big Dipper Divine Fist stopped. The Earth origin came out from his bones again. Endless Earth spiritual chi once again filled Xiaohua's body and meridians. Moreover, Xiaohua's body was like a fallen leaf, rapidly shrinking. He casually floated into the billions of gray dots and disappeared. When Xiaohua's body fell into the gray dots, Little White Dragon's soul and Xiaohua's 2 primordial spirits that were hidden in his meridians moved again. Little White Dragon hurriedly flew out. It opened its mouth and swallowed the rest of the dragon's soul. Then, it roared loudly. Sparkling lights appeared on the dragon's body. Countless strange runes appeared on the dragon's body. Little White Dragon's soul gradually grew bigger. Wu, Xiaohua's green primordial spirit made a very strange sound. It waved its soul strand as if it was reminding Little White Dragon. Then, the 2 primordial spirits looked at the earth origin in his bones and hurriedly rushed into Xiaohua's mysterious dark clouds. After the 2 primordial spirits left, Xiaohua's dragon-shaped primordial spirit looked at the orange color in his bones. It seemed to be thinking about something. Then, its body suddenly turned into a line and hid in his meridians. The dragon transformation art was activated again. The blocked meridians were gradually unblocked. Spinning crazily. Xiaohua's body fell into the gray dots. This was the only ending. However, the earth origin in his body moved again after Little White Dragon's soul entered his meridians. The earth origin first passed through Xiaohua's body. The 13200 primordial spirits that made up his body rapidly passed through. Everywhere it passed, it would condense a strand of yellow dust. After the dust was absorbed by the primordial spirits would turn orange. After these primordial spirits turned orange, they did not stop. Strand after strand of dust continued to form until these primordial spirits were blocked. Then, the Earth Origin seemed to be attracted by the dragon transformation art and entered his meridians again. Similar to the tempering of the Fire Origin, his meridians swelled inch by inch and became blocked inch by inch until his entire meridians were completely blocked. With his meridians blocked, the dragon transformation art could no longer be activated. The Earth Origin finally left his meridians and moved towards his heart. At this crucial moment, a faint star flame appeared in Xiaohua's space. This star flame also had the appearance of Xiaohua. However, the expression on its face was solemn. It was extremely different from the usual Xiaohua's smiling face. Inside this star flame was the shape of a star core. Wasn't this star flame Xiaohua's primordial spirit that had merged with the heavenly Dao starry sky? Compared to before, this star core had evolved again. It did not have the appearance of a single star, but a real starry sky. Within this starry sky, many stars were flashing with each other. This primordial spirit glanced at it and seemed to see the Earth Origin through space. Then, the heavenly Dao primordial spirit disappeared again. Then, in the entire space, a mysterious fluctuation suddenly appeared. This fluctuation passed through space and rushed into Xiaohua's body. As soon as the Earth Essence and Fire Essence came into contact with this fluctuation, they immediately produced similar fluctuations, and the previous boundless Earth Spirit Chi was no longer produced. Thus, the Earth Origin sent out this fluctuation that resonated with the fluctuation in space. At the same time, it recklessly rushed into space. When the Earth Origin entered Xiaohua's space, the green-robed Xiaohua, who was refining pills, seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly stood up and waved his hand. Go! The strand of spiritual fire that Xiaohu absorbed into his space immediately appeared in front of the Earth Origin. With a loud bang, a yellow spiritual fire appeared beside the pure scarlet spiritual fire. This yellow spiritual fire was as pure as before, and it was actually transparent. A dignified aura that surpassed all living things was emitted from this yellow spiritual fire that did not seem to be able to sense any heat. After the spiritual fire was ignited, there was a loud rumble. The entire space began to tremble. A kind of earth-shaking tremor appeared. However, just as this tremor appeared, Xiaohua's heavenly Dao primordial spirit appeared again. The moment this primordial spirit appeared, the earth-shaking tremor immediately stopped. The heavenly Dao primordial spirit opened its mouth and the Earth Origin entered it. Then, the heavenly Dao primordial spirit's star flame began to rapidly sway. Following this sway, the primordial spirit expanded like a cloud. The stars in its body gradually solidified and flew into the sky. It gradually merged with the starry sky behind the 9 suns. After a moment, a kind of joy, vitality, and will that took root was born. It filled the entire space and did not calm down for a long time. The Earth Origin was absorbed by Xiaohua when he was unconscious. As for himself, he fell into one of the millions of whirlpools in the Western Sea's eye. His whereabouts were unknown. Above the Western Sea, where the eye of the sea was located, thousands of miles away, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was rampant. Strands and strands of dragon-like hurricanes rushed over from afar and crashed into the sea surface. Now, the place where there were no fish or seabirds within 100 miles had disappeared. A huge funnel with a radius of 1,000 miles had appeared in the Western Sea. This funnel was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. Not only did the hurricanes rush in, even the surging seawater also rushed in with a roar. The seawater spiraled in and let out a deafening roar. The seabirds that flew by occasionally crashed into the funnel and immediately had their wings broken. No matter how hard they struggled, they could not escape the fate of destruction. They fell into the bottom of the funnel, the bottom of the abyss that seemed to be only a few feet deep. If the birds were like this, then there was no need to talk about the fish. Countless small fish with glowing scales seemed to swim over along with the abundant spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Then, they fell into the whirlpool and could no longer struggle out. Of course, the fish that fell into the whirlpool all followed the current and did not know their fate in the future. There were even some strong fish that leaped up from the current as if to show off. However, this was only the last time they showed off. The fish were immediately sucked into the abyss and never looked back. -11. Chapter 31-36. After an unknown amount of time, in the sky thousands of kilometers away from the abyss, a ring of crimson light suddenly appeared. Then, the light around the ring of crimson light turned into thousands of flowers. Before the flowers could fully appear, a golden light flashed from within the ring of crimson light, and an enormous creature hundreds of feet long appeared out of thin air. This enormous creature that suddenly appeared was actually a dragon. This dragon's body was shining with golden light, and the source of the golden light was the foot-long scales that covered the dragon's body. These scales were somewhat similar to fish scales, but there were indescribable runes that faintly flashed on them. Between each scale, there were traces of crimson flames that flashed, and the edges of the flames were almost completely black. Behind the dragon's body, the butterfly-like tail actually had traces of purple. Now that the purple had just escaped from the gray void, it was already slightly dim. Roar. The moment the dragon appeared, its roar shook the 9 heavens. The dragon's roar was filled with anger. Looking at the dragon's head that was tens of feet long, the pair of crimson dragon horns were very eye-catching. Between the dragon horns was an extremely simple and unadorned dragon crown. The dragon crown gave off a faint golden light that covered most of the dragon's head, making it impossible to see the dragon's face. However, as the dragon roared, the golden light flashed as if it was breathing. Vaguely, one could see the ugly malevolence under the golden light. After the dragon roared angrily, it slightly waved its tail, and the crimson light turned into a rainbow. The dragon followed the rainbow and charged toward the eye of the West Sea faster than a meteor. The distance of thousands of kilometers was covered in the blink of an eye. Woo! Seeing the situation at the eye of the sea, the dragon let out another angry roar. After the dragon circled above the eye of the West Sea for a while, the golden light around its body flashed and a figure with a dragon's head and a human's body appeared in the air. It wasn't right to call it a human's figure because this human's body was hidden under a bright yellow robe. Aside from a pair of arms that looked like human arms sticking out of the robe, what was exposed was still a pair of slender dragon claws. At the bottom of the robe was also a thick dragon tail. Like before, the dragon crown on the dragon horns still covered the face of the dragon-headed human's body, so it was impossible to see who this dragon-headed human was. Who is it? The dragon-headed humanoid roared angrily. His voice shook the sky and reverberated above the West Sea for a long time. This person clearly knew that there was no one around this time, but he still couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. Which damned person actually suppressed the fire dragon soul, the inheritance of my West Sea Dragon Palace in the sea eye of my West Sea? Which one of you should be skinned alive? How dare you take away my fire dragon soul? If this old man knew, I would definitely hack you into 1,000 pieces and grind your bones to dust. This dragon-headed humanoid figure was actually the West Sea Dragon Palace Master. After saying that, the West Sea Dragon King still raised his hand slightly as if he had not vented his hatred. An indescribable ripple appeared from the dragon claw. Following this ripple, the seawater within 500 kilometers suddenly rose. It was as if a huge wave had suddenly rushed into the sky and lifted the West Sea Dragon King up. Then, with a loud boom, all the seawater crashed into the eye of the sea. Instantly, water splashed everywhere, and a huge crater appeared around the eye of the sea. Even the Dragon King of the West Sea's figure seemed a little ethereal in the thousands of feet of mist. However, it was only for half an hour. When the water splashed and the waves calmed down, all the seawater continued to pour into the eye of the sea. The West Sea surface did not decrease at all. Everything was the same as before. At that moment, the West Sea Dragon King was standing even higher than before. The golden light under the dragon crown had already calmed down. I knew it. Back then, Baldy and Bien Yao wanted to borrow my sea eye of the West Sea to suppress that fellow. They definitely had other plans. I should not have agreed to it. The West Sea Dragon King muttered again. It's a pity that my royal brother has always been soft-hearted. He nodded before I even said anything. The grudge between the Taoists and the Buddhists originally had nothing to do with my dragon palace. Even if the Great Sage Temple was involved, my West Sea might not be willing to get involved. Now, that fellow actually did not get refined by the yin-yang illustration mirror. Instead, he escaped with the treasure. The most hateful thing is that I don't know if it's Baldy or Bien Niao, but he actually had designs on my fire dragon soul. He even left it in the eye of the West Sea to suppress and refine it. The thing that I could not find even after searching the 3 continents and 4 seas was actually right under my nose. Really bullied me too much. With that, the West Sea Dragon King raged again. He raised his dragon claw again, and countless amounts of seawater flowed out. However, this time, the seawater merely flowed up and then slowly retreated. It did not have the same might as before. This was because the West Sea Dragon King was filled with shock and confusion as he said, "However, this is also extremely strange. Which almighty expert broke the Buddhist and demonic arrays in the eye of the West Sea? It seems like even I don't dare to recklessly try that Golden Crow immortal slaying demonic array. It's a pity that the heavenly secrets here have already been overturned by that fellow. Even with my ability, I am unable to find any clues. If this person has the same origin as that fellow, I'm afraid the 3 continents are going to be in chaos again. I don't know if it's that Baldy or that Bien Niao. Their methods are so brilliant. Even if I sense the aura of the fire dragon's soul, I am unable to find any concrete evidence to interrogate them." Humph. Such a huge change happened in the eye of the West Sea, and the West Sea Patrol envoy actually did not sense it at all. They really deserve to die. Sigh. Forget it. A good 4 seas banquet has been disrupted by someone. Royal Brother and Royal Brother should have reached the West Sea Dragon Palace by now. It's better to discuss it with them first. As the West Sea Dragon King spoke, his figure slowly flew away. The strong suction force of the Eye of the Sea had no effect on him at all. He flew past it as if he was taking a stroll in the park and gradually disappeared. The West Sea Dragon King had left, but the Eye of the West Sea was still not calm. After an unknown period of time, a faint Buddhist light flashed out from a water droplet in the Eye of the Sea. Then, from an unknown location within the water droplet, a voice that was even softer than an ant's voice rang out. Umidba, that person, has escaped in the end. The 3 continents are going to be in chaos again. However, who was the one who saved this person? How can there be such a person in the 3 continents? Could it be that that person has comprehended the yin-yang illustrated handbook by himself? It's fine if that person left, but he just had to shatter my Buddhist edict. The fire dragon soul that was suppressed by the Buddhist edict will definitely reveal its aura. At this moment, I am unable to calculate where the fire dragon soul is. If it was taken away by Ao Hong, not only would it benefit the West Sea, it would also expose me. Yes, according to that person's character, there is nothing that he cannot take. He must have taken it away. How could he leave it to Ao Hong? However, that person has been suppressed by the yin-yang illustrated handbook for so many years. How could he refine the yin-yang illustrated handbook so easily? If he could reach that level, at this moment, I am afraid he would have already attacked my Thunderclap Palace, right? How could he reverse yin and yang here and make me unable to do anything? That's strange. Someone else must have saved him. Forget it. Yin and yang are already in chaos and karma is entangled. I am also helpless. Let's just listen to the analysis quietly. No matter how deep the karma is, there will be a chance for it to surface sooner or later. Just like this Eye of the Sea that is comparable to the 9 underworlds. Sigh, I would never have thought that it would actually reveal itself today. It is so many years earlier than I thought. At this moment, that faint Buddhist light suddenly flourished. A Buddha statue that was a few feet tall suddenly appeared in the Eye of the Sea. Of course, this Buddha statue disappeared in a flash. An extremely shocked voice came from the disappearing Buddha statue. Io, how is this possible? When did the future Buddha Lord descend? As the current Buddha Lord, why didn't I sense it at all? However, I have been worrying about this for more than 10,000 years. That future Buddha Lord has always been unable to appear in my nirvana. Why did I suddenly have a warning sign today? Could it be that the Eye of the Sea is greatly related to the future Buddha Lord? This seems to be impossible. This future Buddha Lord has actually descended. But where is he? Why did I only see a trace of it? When I look at it carefully, it is abnormally blurry and unclear. This is really strange. Since the future Buddha Lord has descended, where is my disciple? Where is he? Poor Ananda. I don't know where his obsession came from, but he actually wants to cultivate the 9 transformations golden body. I have already explained to him clearly that the 9 transformations golden body is to achieve Buddha fruit consecutively for 9 lifetimes. It is impossible to achieve one less lifetime. Moreover, as long as there is a trace of slack, the heavenly demon will enter the body. The good karma of the previous lifetimes will be tainted by the corresponding evil karma. In every life, the red lotus karmic fire would burn every inch of the golden body that he had cultivated, until the soul dissipates and no longer exists in this world. Not only that, every bodhisattva who cultivates the 9 transformations golden body not only has to cultivate Buddhism when he is alive, but also has to leave his obsession when he is in nirvana. Between life and death, he has to comprehend the true meaning of life and death. When he falls into the 6 paths of reincarnation, he has to keep the mirror clear. Only when he enters the Bodhi seed can he leave the Buddha root for the next lifetime. Under my protection, Ananda has now fully cultivated the 8 transformations golden body. Every time he reincarnates, he is also in my nirvana. Alas, in fact, I should have noticed it in his previous lifetime. The protection of each lifetime has caused rebellion in his heart. This kind of obsession is inevitable when the heavenly demon resides. I was only concerned about the future Buddha Lord and neglected this matter. In this lifetime, he must have used a secret technique when he was in the depths of samsara in his previous lifetime. Either he has reincarnated into other worlds, or he has already descended into the nirvana. He did not allow me to investigate and wanted to rely on his own obsession to cultivate. What a pity, fool. Is cultivation really so simple? If it is like what you think, isn't this world full of immortals and Buddhas? You have already cultivated the 8 transformations golden body. Why don't you understand it? Sometimes, knowing too much is not necessarily a good thing. Ananda, you are my disciple and the number 1 in many rumors. This is originally an advantage, but now, it is a disaster. -11. Chapter 31-37. Amitabha, this sovereign has also become obsessed. Let's go. Even if the Buddha's shadow comes, that old dragon of the West Ocean will know. For no reason, he found a trace of truth. And this trace of truth is enough for him to follow the vine to the melon. Actually, this voice was so soft. Who could see it? Even if that Buddha's shadow appeared for a moment, even if someone was really near the Eye of the Sea, they wouldn't be able to see it. However, after this soft voice, there was no more sound. Within the sea eye, there was only the roaring waves and the strange whimpering of the abyss. Xiaohua didn't expect that his trip to the Eye of the West Ocean would attract so much attention. He also didn't know that in the eyes of these almighty beings, there was almost no way for him to hide. Fortunately, the cultivator wrapped in the Yin-Yang illustrated handbook did something for his safety. Otherwise, when Xiaohua just arrived at the boundary of the 3 continents, he would have suffered the same tragic fate as the Dawn Rain continent. At this moment, Xiaohua didn't think too much. He only felt a splitting headache, and his body was incomparably heavy. He couldn't even move. When he opened his eyes, everything before him was pitch black. There was also no sound in his ears. It was as if he was in an absolutely silent space. There seems to be a familiar feeling. Xiaohua resisted an indescribable fear and thought to himself. When he tried to send out his divine sense, although his Niwen palace was protected by the innate divine restriction, his divine sense seemed to be extremely exhausted and couldn't leave his body at all. Could it be that I have to drift for many years again? Although Xiaohua didn't know why he thought this, he couldn't help but have such a thought. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, even he was shocked because he didn't know where this thought had come from. Could it be that I've experienced this before? Xiao Hua thought to himself as he looked at the abnormally pitch-black darkness. There wasn't even a bit of starlight. Then, Xiao Hua tried to take a breath. Sure enough, there wasn't a trace of air in this pitch-black darkness. An ordinary person would definitely suffocate to death here. Damn it, I understand. Suddenly, Xiao Hua came to a realization. When did I experience this? It must be that phoenix celestial body that was trapped in the void. Earlier, regardless of whether it was Dawnrain continent or the West Ocean, I wasn't in space, so I was naturally unable to comprehend the comprehension of the phoenix Dharma body. Now that I'm trapped in the void, I can naturally communicate with the phoenix Dharma body that's also trapped in the void. I just don't know. When will I be able to meet the phoenix Dharma body? Xiao Hua thought as he looked at the faintly discernible pitch black. He really wanted to know what the phoenix law body looked like at this moment. Boom! Just as Xiao Hua was looking at the void, a huge explosion erupted in the darkness. A brilliant ray of sunlight pierced through the darkness like a sharp sword. The sunlight was so intense that Xiao Hua couldn't help but close his eyes. Motherfucker, this? What kind of person is this? What kind of divine ability is this? He could actually break through the void? To be able to bring... Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. When had he ever seen such an almighty being with such remarkable abilities? Even the Empress of the 10,000 Demon Realm and Old Wu of the Hutu Stronghold couldn't have such magical powers, right? Master, there's actually someone inside. An extremely simple and honest voice rang out in the sunlight. Ah? This? What kind of situation is this? Xiao Hua was stunned. He narrowed his eyes and looked around. He saw the astonished expression of a young man who wasn't even 20 years old. This expression was even more astonished than Xiao Hua's. Before Xiao Hua could move his gaze away from this young man's face, on the other side of the young man, a lean face suddenly appeared and landed on Xiao Hua's face. His skinny face was full of wrinkles, and his two turbid eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. On his shriveled lips, there was a small white beard that drooped down from the corner of his mouth like a rat's tail. What was special was that between those cracked lips, there were a few large yellow and black teeth swaying in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. A kind of stench rushed out from behind those teeth. Xiao Hua almost instantly stopped breathing. However, that shocked gaze still showed in his eyes. He didn't dare to believe that an almighty being who could break through the void actually had such a wretched appearance. Sure enough, and he's still alive. A slightly hoarse voice that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life also shouted out in surprise. The old man's eyes, which seemed to be extremely astute, quickly turned in surprise and astonishment. Moreover, a faint divine sense subtly swept towards Xiao Hua. This? Xiao Hua frowned. This old man's cultivation clearly didn't match Xiao Hua's expectations. However, not only was Xiao Hua unable to move his body, his four limbs were soft and didn't have a trace of strength. His gaze could only see the blue sky above the two people's heads and the leisurely white clouds in the sky, but he couldn't see anything else. Soul sense. Xiao Hua, who had never placed any hope in weak soul sense, suddenly woke up and hurriedly released his soul sense. When Xiao Hua saw the situation he was in, he couldn't help but bitterly smile. Where did the void come from? Where did the void come from? Right now, he was just inside a large yellow crystal. His body was embedded in it, and he couldn't move at all. Moreover, his body was currently naked, without an inch of clothing. However, the crystal covered most of his body, so there was nothing particularly embarrassing about it. What the old man or the young man had broken was naturally the yellow crystal. How could it be the void? AI, that's not right. Xiao Hua was disappointed, but he suddenly woke up. This old man seems to be wearing a Taoist robe. Moreover, he's speaking in the Taoist language. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly shouted, "Fellow Taoist, is this the country of Shi?" Nonsense, of course it's the country of Shi. The old man's divine sense swept over Xiao Hua's body. When he didn't see any magic power, he unhappily raised his eyebrows and coldly said, "However, you don't know magic, so you don't have the qualifications to call me fellow Taoist." Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed. That laugh was really brilliant and happy. That's right, for no reason. He passed through the eye of the Gue Hisi and actually entered the spatial meridian. The spatial meridian's natural formation not only killed the two middle nascent soul stage cultivators, it also broke the seal on his Niwan Palace and middle Dantian. Although he lost his gold core and Buddha's Saraira for no reason, he had been in seclusion for more than 100 years. In that strange realm, he also obtained a pile of fire essence flame crystals and the origin of earth. Especially, he also obtained the Mavarakana Buddhist edict and the fire dragon soul. These things couldn't be obtained in the Dawn Rain continent. These things were hidden in the eye of the West Ocean. Xiaohua didn't need to think too much. They must be related to some ancient secrets. If he took them, wouldn't it be best if no one knew? However, not to mention the person inside the black and white cloud, even the West Ocean Patrol Deputy Inspector Xian Cheng knew about it. Maybe one day, it would be leaked out. At that time, he would definitely be hunted down. At that time, the hunt would be much more severe than the two middle nascent soul stage cultivators. Now, he had unexpectedly returned to the Dawn Rain continent without a hitch. How could those powerful cultivators chase him here? He could just treat these 100 years as a dream or a long period of seclusion. In short, everything was over. The current Xiaohua was like an unsheathed flying sword. Wherever the sword's light pointed, would be the grudges that others should repay. Unfortunately, just as Xiaohua's blood was boiling, the old man's words were like a bucket of ice water splashed on Xiaohua's head. Yuanya, hurry up and dig this guy out of the stone. Find him some clothes to wear. This old man picked him up with great difficulty from the mountain and spent a lot of effort. Make him work to repay his debt. The old man very indifferently shifted his gaze away from Xiaohua's body. He only greedily looked at the crystal on Xiaohua's body. It seemed that the crystal was much more valuable than Xiaohua. He then instructed, moreover, it's already late. The mortal town's Minister Liu is still waiting for us to perform a ritual for him at night. We must not delay it. Otherwise, he will have to find the bald donkey from Shaojian Temple in the future. The old man spoke very quickly. In the middle, there were some words that Xiaohua couldn't understand. It was extremely similar to what Su Zhuliang said. However, the ritual, bald donkey and other words of the Tao sect made Xiaohua stunned. When the young man called Yuanya heard this, he didn't say much and agreed. His right hand reached beside him, and at the same time, he raised his left hand. Xiaohua's eyes swept over. It was actually a hammer that was about the size of a small millstone in his lean hand. Boom. Without waiting for Xiaohua to ask or look more, Yuanya raised the hammer and smashed it on the crystal beside Xiaohua's ear. Xiaohua's ear buzzed, and the fragments of the top-quality crystal also hit Xiaohua's face. -11.